Symbiosis Law School, Pune, would like to warmly welcome each and every one of you to the final rounds of the 7th edition of Symbiosis Law School, Pune International Criminal Trial Advocacy Competition, also known as SICTA 2022. We are extremely delighted to inform you that this year the competition was organized with three preliminary rounds and one semi-final rounds, and today we are here present with the final rounds. The competition was organized over the span of past 3 days, and today we are organizing hosting the final round of the competition. I welcome you all to the round, and the teams that have qualified for the finals are team code SLS_16, who shall be representing the prosecution side, SLS_9, who shall be representing the defense, and SLS_04, who shall be representing the side of the victim. Now, I would like to request Mr. Gaurav Lalwani, the core committee member of the Student Bar Association at SLS Pune, to introduce and welcome the panel present here today.
Thank you so much, Ish. I would now move ahead by introducing the panel present with us today. The final rounds of SICTA 2022 is graced by the presence of His Lordship, Honorable Mr. Justice Pradeep Singh Yerur Sir, Judge of the High Court of Karnataka, Barrister Tapas Kanti Bal Sir, Office of the Chief Prosecutor at the International Crimes Tribunal, Bangladesh, Dr. Namira Nabil Ma'am, Director of the African Migration Observatory, Dr. Umesh Kadam Sir, the Regional Legal Advisor at the International Committee of the Red Cross, and lastly, we have Dr. Pemraju Srinivasa Rao Sir, the Special Advisor in the Office of the Attorney General of the State of Qatar. We thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to adjudicate the final rounds of SICTA 2022. Lastly, we sincerely thank you all for your patience and support to the organizing committee of SICTA 2022. I hope that the participants are now ready for the competition, and with the permission of the judges, we shall now commence the final rounds of SICTA 2022.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
The Office of the Prosecution seeks permission to address the chamber in its opening statement.
Yes, prosecution may proceed.
May it please the chamber, a very good morning to the Honorable President, Your Excellencies. The prosecution, the Office of the Prosecutor, stand here today in the case of prosecutor versus Viktor Yanukovych, charged under Article 82C1 of War Crime of Murder of the Rome Statute. And today, the prosecution shall be proving the same. Your Excellencies, since 2013, there had been a constant conflict between the government of Titan and the TLF militia. The accused in the present matter was the chief technician of the Project Hawk, which was a project established by the government of Titan from 2015 to 2020. Your Excellencies, and it is also very pertinent to note here that he was authorized to control the drones, which led to the mass killings of 340 children and adults on July 26, 2020. Your Excellencies, moving forward, in order to prove the charge of war crime of murder, the prosecution shall be proving the contextual elements first under Article 82C of the statute, and then shall be moving to Article 82C1 of the Rome Statute. Your Excellencies, the contextual elements that shall be established by the prosecution during the course of this trial are as follows. Number one, the conflicts in the state of Titan was not of an international character, but of a non-international character. Number two, the attack that took place on the day of July 26, 2020 at the Holy Cross School was in serious violations of Article 3 common to the 4 Geneva Conventions. Your Excellency, the third element was that the attack was committed against the person taking part in no hostilities. Your Excellencies, moving forward, Your Excellencies, the element under the Article 82C1 of the Rome Statute shall be proved. Article 82C1 of the Rome Statute states that the accused killed more than 2 people. There was an existence of an armed conflict in the state of Titan. The accused was aware of this very existence of the armed conflict. The accused killed the civilians who were not taking part in hostilities. And lastly, Your Excellency, the accused knew about the status, the very status of these civilians who were not taking part in the hostilities. Moreover, Your Excellency, prosecutor, the office of the prosecutor, shall also be establishing and satisfying during the entire course of the trial by way of two witnesses the mental element aspects pursuant to Article 30 of the Rome Statute, which talks about the intent and knowledge. Your Excellencies, in order to prove the intent and knowledge, there are two elements that must be established and that shall be established during the course of the trial. Number one, that the accused meant to engage in the attack on 26 July 2020, and the accused meant to cause the consequence or was aware of the consequence that will take place. Your Excellencies, it is pertinent to note here that it is in an either or manner. Moving forward, after the elements under Article 82C, Article 82C1, and Article 30 have been established, the prosecution shall move on to prove individual criminal responsibility under Article 25(3)(a) of the statute. Your Excellencies, in order to prove the article elements under Article 25(3)(a), first the prosecution shall provide the elements that there must be plurality of persons. There must be a common plan between the accused and military commander, which in our case was Jack Ryder. And thirdly and lastly, there was participation of the accused involving the perpetration of crime in furtherance of a common plan. Your Excellencies, all these elements that the prosecutor, the office of the prosecutor, is stating right now shall be one by one established during the course of the trial by way of our witnesses. Therefore, Excellencies, in conclusion to the prosecutor's opening statement, the prosecutor shall prove all the elements by way of reasons, evidence, and elements provided to this honorable chamber, and the prosecution humbly prays to this chamber to hold the accused liable for the war crime of murder. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, may the victim's representative begin with the opening statement?
Yes, Your.
The counsel seeks permission to collectively address the judges as Your Honors.
Yes, permitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning to everyone present here, Mr. President, Your Honors, the Office of the Prosecutor, and the counsels from the defense and the witnesses. In the case of the prosecutor versus Viktor Yanukovych for the war crime of murder under Article 82C of the Rome Statute, we are the legal representative of the victims. I am Speaker 1, and I will be making my opening statement and conducting the examinations in chief of the witnesses. And assisting me is my co-counsel, who will be conducting the cross-examination of the witnesses and making the closing statement. Your Honors, the case before us today is shrouded with tragedy and gore. The victims in this case are innocent children and civilians who have been brutally murdered by the acts of the accused in the attack that took place in Holy Cross School on 26 July 2020. 270 children and 100 adults who were in no way associated with the armed conflict were shot in cold blood during the course of the strike. The civilian victims of Titan have suffered tremendous physical harm and individually and collectively. In addition, their surviving relatives have experienced enormous mental and psychological trauma from witnessing their family members being brutally and indiscriminately murdered by the Titanian military. The accused was an external consultant to the army and later was appointed as a chief technical and administrative head of Project Hawk. He ensured that he was in a position of authority and control and used this said authority to commit the war crime of murder. However, the accused is now trying to absolve himself of any liability arising out of the consequences of his actions. The victims' representatives stand before this chamber today to support the actions initiated by the ICC prosecutor. We also acknowledge the extraordinary power of the court to provide reparations to victims as per Article 75 of the Rome Statute. The ultimate objective beside charging the accused is providing reparation for victims, because reparations, Your Honor, are the cornerstone of justice. Your Honor, the representatives of victims have brought forth two witnesses who will be aiding and in substantiating our submissions. The first witness is Dr. Alexander, who will testify regarding the training module provided, and the other witness is a direct victim of the situation and is a survivor of the attack. Your Honor, our case lies on three prongs. Firstly, that the accused did commit the war crime of murder as under Article 82C, and the contextual elements as provided under the Shipov elements have been outlined by the prosecutor. So I will be moving forward with my second submission. Secondly, the representatives for victims submit that the Martins Clause provides the Rome Statute with sufficient legal framework to impose liability on the accused. The Martins Clause provides the authority for treating principles of humanity and the dictates of public conscience as principles of international law. It requires in particular that emerging technology or methods of warfare have to comply with these principles. The VLR submits that Project Hawk, developed and used in the attack conducted in Holy Cross School, contravenes both the principles of this clause. Thirdly, the accused will be individually criminally responsible under Article 25(3) for ordering the deployment of the drones developed under Project Hawk because he satisfies the prerequisites to incur responsibility as laid out in the Kardzik trial. Firstly, that he was in a position of authority as he was the chief technical officer and the administrative head of the drone program. And the counsel proved the same through the examination of various prosecutor witnesses as well as the victim witnesses. And Mr. Victor's actions had a direct and substantial impact on the death of 270 children and over 100 adults. Additionally, he also possessed the mental element for ordering the commission of crime because despite being informed that the school was a sensitive zone, the accused voted in favor of conducting the strike and dismissed the suggestion as irrelevant when brought up by the additional army officers. Additionally, the representatives of the victim would like to highlight that the accused cannot utilize the exceptions provided under Article 31 and Article 33 of the Rome Statute. Lastly, the accused is responsible under Article 28(b)(3), which deals with criminal responsibility when the superior failed to take all necessary and reasonable measures within his or her power to prevent or repress the commission of crime. The accused claims that since he holds no official designation in the army, was merely appointed as the technical and administrative head of the drone program, he cannot be held liable. Article 28(b)(3) specifically covers responsibility of non-military superior officers, and thus the accused cannot evade liability of his actions by claiming that he holds no position under the Titanian army. The legal representative of the victim would like to bring to your notice of your honors that this article is based on the doctrine of command responsibility, and there are three essential elements that need to be proven. Firstly, there existed a superior subordinate relationship and the VLR submits that the relationship between an operator and fully autonomous weapon system have the features of a superior subordinate relationship. The giving of instructions and expectation of obedience are indicators that a superior has effective control over the weapon system. The accused was well aware of the system he was developing and its adverse implications as autonomous weapons was his field of expertise, and he had been working on the conceptualization of such systems for more than 10 years. Viktor Yanukovych also possessed the actual and constructive knowledge of the crime committed because the accused planned the entire operation and voted on conducting the strike in Holy Cross School, despite being made aware of the fact that it was a sensitive zone, and he actively dismissed the same suggestion. Thus, the legal representative of the victims would like to conclude by saying that Mr. Yanukovych did commit the war crime of murder, and he cannot utilize the exceptions outlined under Article 31 and 33 of the Rome Statute. The accused will incur responsibility under Article 25 and 28. The legal representative of the victims seek reparation for victims who have been subjected to extreme levels of physical and psychological torture by the acts of the accused. Additionally, the counsel would like to highlight a few cases. I'm so sorry, I've seen that my time is up. The counsel would like to continue.
You can continue with your judgments and citations.
Indeed, Your Honor, thank you. The counsel would like to cite three cases. That is the case of Kenyatta in 2012, which for the crimes against humanity in the ICC itself, and also this four reparation cases, Your Honor. The case of Al-Mahdi in 2018 for war crimes, the court ordered reparation of over 2.7 million euros. And in the case of Taganda in 2021 for war crimes again, the order of reparation was of $30 million. And in the specific case, Your Honor, if the court found that the accused could not could not take up the entire cost of the reparations ordered by the court, and hence the trust fund, which is provided under Rule 98 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, can be utilized for providing reparations for the victims. Additionally, in the case of Lubanga in 2019 for war crimes again, the order of reparations that was ordered was around $10 million, Your Honor. With this, the counsel would like to end her opening statement, and we hope to substantiate all of what has been cited in our opening statement through our testimonies and cross-examinations. Thank you, Your Honors.
I have a question for you, counsel.
Indeed, Your Honor.
From the facts which have been presented so far, it looks like Mr. Victor was working for a private military security company, and he was never integrated into the armed forces of Titan. So what you said regarding are irrelevant, because he was like a private contractor.
I'm so sorry, Your Honor. I think your voice broke. I couldn't hear the last part of your question.
My question is, to us, it looks like Mr. Victor was working for a private military security company, and he was not integrated into the armed forces of Titan. And therefore, whatever you said regarding the individual responsibility or superior responsibility and other related things appear to be quite irrelevant, because he was not integrated into the armed forces, and he was just providing technical support to the armed forces. So how can you hold him accountable? Because there are other people who have taken decision and who voted. There was voting in a small council, 4 versus 2. So those who voted in favor of the decision to launch an attack, they should be held accountable rather than a mere technical person.
Indeed, Your Honor. I would like to answer the last part of your question first regarding the vote that was conducted, Your Honor. The counsel submits that Mr. Yanukovych actively voted that the strike be conducted. He was part of the meeting that was conducted by Mr. Jack Ryder, and he voted in favor of the strike, despite the fact that other soldiers brought up that it was a sensitive situation and the attack was excessive in proportion to the threats that they perceived. And additionally, he dismissed this suggestion as irrelevant, Your Honor. Additionally, regarding the fact that the private entity, Your Honor, he was the CEO of 3MZ, which was prior to his involvement with the army. He was involved directly with the army, not merely just as a chief technical administrative head. He was the developer in Titan's military program. He was given training. He was sent by the government to the US Academy, and the project was developed with Jack Ryder's consonance. And another point, Your Honor, that the fact that other officials must be held accountable, the other officials are being held accountable in different cases before the same court. However, the present case relates to the liability of the accused, that is Mr. Yanukovych, because he not only did he plan the entire operation, he also took active part in deployment of the drones, and we'll prove the same through our testimonies. And another fact is that he was the programmer and the developer, and he had full authority to develop the program and full authority of the offensive also, if I might add. We will substantiate all of this in our testimonies, Your Honor. I hope that answers your question.
Just a supplementary question. If we decide to hold that accused was working for a private military security company, is it possible for you to argue that even if he was working for a private military security company on the basis of certain emerging norms of international humanitarian law, he can be still held accountable for the act of the private military security company?
Indeed, Your Honor. This is exactly why the counsel has submitted the responsibility he'll be incurring under Article 28B3, which specifically deals with non-military superior officers. If he established that it was a completely private company and that the army had no control over its operations, and how that Mr. Jack Ryder did not supervise any of its provisions, which is clear, which we will clearly prove in our testimonies. Additionally, the counsel would like to cite a case for the same, Your Honor, regarding the the command responsibility in civilian structures. 1 second, Your Honor, if I could just get a minute. Yes, Your Honor. The ICTY case of prosecutor versus Muchik et al. Established that effective control could exist in civilian within military structures as well. And we'll be proving this, Your Honor, that Project Hawk was a visionary program of the Titanian military, and Jack Ryder did have control of its operations. And Mr. Yanukovych played a very significant role in developing all the functions of the program, and he had a direct and substantial impact on the crime that was committed. And that by merely saying that he was a technical and administrative head, he cannot evade any sort of liability.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Your
Madam
Honor.
Victim Speaker 1, I have a question along with
Indeed,
what
Your Honor.
brother kindly hear me. Now, can you tell this court as to what is the primary requirement of criminal liability? How do you fasten the criminal liability? What are the requirements?
Indeed, Your Honor. So to incur criminal liability, there must be an act or omission on part of the accused that he did commit the crime, and he had knowledge also. The mental element also plays a significant role, and the mental element can be established by foreseeability of the actions that were to take place and the consequences of the actions that the accused undertook in that particular situation.
All right. So that you according to you have established that by way of your evidence and your documentary proof?
Indeed, Your Honor. We'll be proving this conclusively that the accused incurs criminal responsibility by very specific questions, and we'll corroborate this at the end of our closing statement as well, Your Honor.
All right. The another one is, now you're in a criminal prosecution for criminal liability.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you also argued that there has to be a compensation recuperation that has to be awarded. Under
Yes,
which
Your Honor.
provision are you mentioning that the compensation requires to be awarded?
Article 75 of the Rome Statute, Your Honor, talks about reparations that needs to be provided for victims. Additionally, Your Honor, I would like to cite Rule 90 and 91 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, which provides that the victims are allowed legal representatives who can argue about the reparations that they need to be sought for them, and that it is in our mandate, that the representative of victims mandate to argue for reparations for these victims who have suffered tremendous loss, injury, and suffering.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Lord Counsel, I just want to know.
Yes, Your Honor.
Actually, you should substantiate in the closing argument that whether reparation is enough for the victims. You don't have to answer it right now, but you can substantiate in your closing argument that whether reparation is enough for the victims.
Your Honor, we'll substantiate this in our closing statement as well. But at this juncture, I would just like to say that we cannot bring back what has been lost, Your Honor. Reparations is just a small amount. It can go a long way in dealing with the suffering and the psychological trauma that has been caused to these victims, Your Honor. 270 innocent children and 100 civilians were murdered, Your Honor.
And also, I would like you to substantiate, since you have raised it now, that what you will actually do with this reparation if you are provided with reparation. What is your plan?
Indeed, Your Honor. We'll substantiate this in our closing statement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
May it please this Honorable Court, the counsel seeks permission to address the bench collectively as Your Honors.
Yes, please.
Your Honors, the legal representatives and the prosecution counsel. In the case against prosecutor versus Viktor Yanukovych for the war crime of murder, we represent the defense counsel. I will be giving the opening statement and examining the witnesses, and my co-counsel will be cross-examining the witnesses and delivering the closing statement. The counsel requests the court to refer to the facts of the official compromise on which we relied to substantiate arguments before this court. Your Honors, the prosecution failed to conduct proper investigation, which is evident from the fact that the office first, through preliminary investigation, held that the situation in Titan falls beyond the threshold of sufficient gravity. Later, the office contradicted its own decision during the second investigation and pressed charges against Mr. Viktor Yanukovych. The inadequate investigations that we say is the hallmark of this prosecution is the completely skewed focus that has led them to get the wrong person for the wrong crimes in a situation where the victims were yearning for redress and justice. Your Honors, the picture painted by the prosecutor of Mr. Viktor Yanukovych does not resemble the real Viktor or his actions or intentions, during the unfortunate event of July 26, 2020. Your Honor's Lady Justice has every right to be blind, but the prosecution does not have that luxury. They should see clearly. They should keep their eyes wide open to investigate not what is presented on a platter, but instead roll up their sleeves as all good investigators should do, to get dirty with facts, to find evidence, to know actually what took place. Your Honors, they have failed to do that. The event of 26 July 2020 was an outcome of a collective decision wherein majority voted in favor of conducting the attack. It was not just Victor's decision. He was there just in the capacity of an advisor, a technician who wanted to help his country for national security by developing drone technology. Your Honors, the targets of the attacks were the militia leaders. Although Victor was not in any authoritative position, he still tried to take every precautionary measure to prevent any harm. First of all, Your Honors, Mr. Victor Yanukovych feeded the information of just the militia leaders in drones, which are capable of targeting and killing without causing any disaster. Your Honors, the defendant is a software engineer. He is being prosecuted for one of the most serious international crimes on the basis of military operations carried out by Mr. Jack Ryder, wherein his only contribution is developing drones in the capacity of a technician. Your Honors, the defense counsel submits that first of all, no crime is committed and that the attack was a war on terrorism, which my co-counsel will be further elaborating in the proceedings of this court. Your Honors, Victor Yanukovych should not be held accountable because none of the 5 elements under the chapeau of Article 8(2)(c) has been fulfilled. Your Honors, Victor Yanukovych also can't be held accountable as a co-perpetrator because no crime has been committed and Victor does not fulfill any elements of co-perpetration as laid down by the pre-trial chambers in the Lubanga case. Your Honors, also none of the 3 elements under the chapeau of Article 25(3)(d) have been fulfilled in the present case. Moreover, Your Honor, the victim counsel argues that we seek defense under Article 33. However, Your Honors, in the present case, no crime is committed and Victor can't be held liable under any individual criminal responsibility. Hence, the contention that the prosecution has raised that we seek to avail exception under Article 33 does not prevail. Your Honors, the fabricated story of the prosecutor cannot establish any intent or knowledge of Victor under the chapeau of Article 33 of the Rome Statute. Your Honors, we cannot hold an innocent man guilty. And if we do, then that's a miscarriage of justice. We vigorously oppose the allegations put forth by the prosecutor and criticize the inadequacy of the investigations conducted. We have every confidence that at the beginning of the trial, at the middle of the trial, and at the end of the trial, there will be fair process in which justice will be served. I thank Your Honors.
Counsel, I have a question for you.
Yes, Your Honors.
From some of the facts which have been presented so far to us, it looks like Victor was a mercenary. And therefore, he's also liable in that capacity. Have you looked into the mercenary convention and what are the conditions that need to be fulfilled for being a mercenary?
Your Honors, the counsel will address the same in due process of this trial. But Your Honors, answering your question, we submit that Victor Yanukovych was a mere technician. He just dealt with the technical aspects of the drones and not the ammunition and weaponry parts.
That is irrelevant because, you see, according to Article 1, Clause A of the Mercenary Convention of 1989, any person who is recruited into the armed forces to fight and where such a person works for private gain, because he was not an employee of the armed forces of that.
Indeed, Your Honor.
He was providing service for quite a substantial amount of fee, and therefore his motive was to make profit. And if these conditions are fulfilled, he becomes a mercenary according to the Mercenary Convention and can be held accountable. And So how can you claim that he's totally innocent?
Your Honor, in the due course of this proceedings, through witness testimonials and through the evidences presented, the defendant counsel will prove that he did not have any intent of any financial benefits or any profits. Indeed, he did not have the sufficient knowledge to cause a direct intent to carry out any attack or any such allegations. It can be proved. We will prove that he had restricted knowledge as provided by Mr. Jack Ryder. The counsel will establish the same through witness testimonials.
Okay, thank you.
Madam, I have a question for you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you read the Article 25 of the Rome Statute?
Indeed, yes, Your Honor.
What does that say? Individual liability and the liability of the other persons who participated in the offense or the crime.
Indeed, Your Honor. The Article 25(3) of the Rome Statute holds individual criminal liability against a person, a perpetrator.
Yes. Now, you are admitting that the act was committed.
Your Honor, the defense counsel submits that no act was committed. In fact, we will prove in the due course of this proceedings that in fact no crime was committed. And in the operation that was conducted by the military, Victor did not have any essential contribution in the same, which is essential under art.
All right. Yes, Learned Counsel, you said that the act was committed in which the person Victor accused, he did not have a main role. He was only a technician.
Yes,
That's
Your
what
Honor.
we argued initially.
Yes, Your Honor. We will prove that on the event of 26 July, he did not have any role to play. It was prior to that, wherein he just ordered the launch of Project Hawk, which he ordered in his restricted knowledge that was given by Mr. Jack Ryder, the military commander.
So that means that you have carried out certain act at the instructions of Jack Ryder. So
yes.
That means you have committed an act, but you're now shifting the liability, criminal liability, on somebody else by saying that you are only a technician. Is that what you are arguing?
Yes, Your Honor. And we are also arguing that it was a war on terrorism.
All right.
And
now that you have said that you merely executed on the instructions of Jack Ryder, what do you have to say that you had the discretion to exercise your own decision making in those split seconds, whether to strike when you had the knowledge that it is going to be a school with children of 270 and adults about 100?
Your Honor, the defense will prove that on the event of 26 July, in fact, the accused Mr. Victor Yanukovych, first of all, he was not present in the scenario. And second of all, he did not have any authority to act on the same.
No, it's an admitted fact that Victor was not present in the school. Now you have argued that he has executed it at the instructions of somebody else, maybe his commander, Jack Ryder.
His actions were limited to the launch of Project Hawk prior to the mission, prior to the operation.
All right. How do you defend him because he has committed the act?
Your Honor, the order given by Mr. Jack Ryder was that they would attack on the school, knowing Mr. Victor Yanukovych, the knowledge given, the instructions and the information given to him, where the school was that the school was an empty decoy and that no civilians were present in the school. And the counsel shall establish the same in witnesses presented before this court.
Do you agree that merely the person who commits the offense will not be liable, even others who participate and abet the commitment of offense will also be liable?
Yes, Your Honor, there is a provision under Rome Statute which holds aiding and abetting as a criminal responsibility. However, the counsel submits that the same has not been fulfilled by Mr. Victor Yanukovych.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I have a few questions because I do feel there is some contradiction, counsel, in your statement when you said that he's just a technician helping his country, while you just mentioned that he ordered the launch. So yes, here, if he's an independent contractor why did he follow the rules of Jack Ryder? That is one pertinent question here, because to establish his liability or not, based on what you just mentioned, that he had limited knowledge. So you claim that he didn't know, and he shouldn't have known that his launch to that project will lead to such calamity, which led to the incident against the school and against the civilians.
Yes,
what do you
Your
say
Honor.
about that?
Yes, Your Honor, indeed. Your Honor, through the testimonial of defense witness to Mr. Sajul Singh, the council will establish that in fact there is a hierarchy which exists. The Project Hawk falls under the orders of the military, under the government of Titan. So at the top is the government of Titan, under which we have the Titan's military, and the members of the Project Hawk, they fall under that military of Titan, and hence they have to follow the orders of the military commanders. If that satisfies Your Honor's question.
But there is also another aspect when you said that he didn't, if he is a private contractor, and you said he gained no financial benefits out of this, that doesn't also make sense. How can you prove that?
Your Honor, he indeed does not gain any financial benefits. He was linked to the military on a private basis, but he did not gain any financial benefits, and moreover, the onus is on the prosecutor to prove that he indeed got any financial benefits.
You mean he was doing his job for free?
No, Your Honor, he was not doing his job for free, but Viktor Yanukovych did not have the knowledge to conduct any crime. What he was informed, he was following, according to him, he was following lawful orders. And in his knowledge, what he was doing, it was completely lawful. And indeed, if right knowledge would be provided to him, he would not have carried out the launch of the Project Hawk.
Completely lawful under which provisions?
Your Honor, under Article 22 of the principle Nalam Simen. I'm sorry, I'm not able to state that principle, but crimes which are stated under the Rome Statute, a person can be held accountable for those crimes and not anything beyond that. And the acts of the accused does not fall under any of the crimes which are stated in the Rome Statute. Your Honor, it's the principle of Nalam Crimen Sine Lege under Article 22 of the Rome Statute.
Thank you.
Madam, I would, Learned Counsel, I would like to ask you another question.
Yes, Your Honor.
With what my colleague has said. Now, while answering that question of my colleague, you said that he did not get any financial benefits. Please answer this court as to whether financial benefit is a requirement for criminal prosecution and criminal liability.
Your Honor, we submit that in fact there was no intent. I assume that by financial benefits, Your Honors will indicate to intent. And the defense counsel submits that in fact there was no intent of Viktor Yanukovych.
No, there are two aspects. One is financial benefit, the other one is intent. There could be intent without financial benefits. You have admitted in your argument that the act was committed, but it was committed at the instance of your commander. Now you have argued second time when my colleague asked you that there was no financial benefit. So that goes contrary to your argument. How do you substantiate that, and why you should not be criminally prosecuted?
Your Honor, he did not gain any financial benefits. Yes, there was a contractual relationship between Project Hawk and the military, and Mr. Viktor Yanukovych was acting according to that. He was following the orders of Jack Ryder. But he should have that specific knowledge that by conducting an act, he should gain financial benefits. Yes, he launched the Project Hawk, but he did not see any criminal consequences of the same. He did not anticipate the consequences. He was just carrying out his job as a chief technician of Project Hawk and nothing else.
Madam, one more question before you close it.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're saying that he was a chief technician. He was aware of the consequences that was going to happen because he's a chief technician and a technical expertise. Knowledge was available with him that there's going to be a colossal collateral damage at the school if he is going to act on it. So the knowledge was there.
Indeed,
May
Your
not
Honor.
have gained any financial benefits.
Answering your question, Your Honor, Viktor Yanukovych had the knowledge that the school was an empty decoy. He acted according to that. And if the school was an empty decoy and everything went according to that, then there would not be any collateral damages. He knew that they were just the military present in the school as informed by Mr. Jack Ryder. And he acted according to the same. If there were no civilians present and just the military was present, then only the militants were being killed by the operation.
All right. Thank you, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Prosecutor seeks permission from Your Excellencies to start with the examination chief of Prosecutor Witness 1, Your Excellencies. May I have the permission?
Yes, yes, please.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. Good morning, Mr. Alex Chamberlain. Am I audible?
Greetings, Mr. President and Your Excellencies. I hope I'm audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Much obliged. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Alex Chamberlain. Am I audible?
Yes.
Could you please tell the chamber about your occupation and also what are you here to testify for?
So my name is Alex Chamberlain. My nationality is Titan and I'm of 47 years of age. My association concerns the Truth Commission of Titan. So I am a member of the Truth Commission of Titan, which was established under the auspices of the United Nations. And the Truth Commission stands as an apolitical, non-profit driven organization that investigated into the conflict that spanned from February of 2020 to March of 2021.
Could you elaborate upon the investigation and also what were your findings?
So the investigation stretched for a period of 11 months across two tranches, the first tranche being January 2021 to August of 2021, and the second tranche being November of 2021 to February of 2022. And the investigation mainly, as I already stated, related to the conflict that happened between February of 2020 to March of 2021. Concerning the findings, our findings, the first finding was concerning there being a shared distraught relationship and a tense environment that already existed between the Targaryen rebel forces and the national parliament. In addition to that, there were certain spurious messages and miscommunication and dissemination of information through fringe groups on social media that further heightened the extent. So because in light of this, in the Tango region, the Tango municipality, the number of security forces were increasingly being deployed. So that was our first finding.
Could you please elaborate more upon the conflicts that took place in the state of Titan?
So my submission is mainly restricted to the communication that was made to the office of the prosecutor, as also mentioned in the moot compromise page 15 and 16. So in relation to the conflict that transpired, our investigation revealed that by mid-July of 2020, there were certain highly specialized and lethal drones that were engaged by the government to suppress oppression arising in the Tango region.
And very well, Mr. Chamberlain. Where were these drones purchased from? And also, could you also please state the purpose of this purchase?
Yes. So there were a set of legal agreements that were executed between the said government and the United States. So the drones came from the United States and the purpose was limited to strategic defense purposes, and the use was limited to protecting the sovereignty of the region.
Could you also please elaborate upon the said formal agreement that took place between the two parties?
Yes. So firstly, the agreement related to what the purpose and use was going to be, as I previously mentioned. And secondly, the set of formal agreements also entailed certain provisions that allowed members of or rather a select group of technicians from Titan to be sent to the US Naval Academy for training regarding these drone technologies. So the accused was also part of the said contingent.
Could you elaborate upon the training also?
Yes. So the accused was part of the contingent alongside 6 other members, and they spent overall 1.5 years in the US to learn active warfare using the said drone technology.
Very well, Mr. Chamberlain. Could you also let the chambers know about the role of the accused with regard to the drones?
Is it related to the attack that transpired?
I'm asking, could you, the council, I apologize, Your Excellency, let the chamber know about the role of that the accused placed in the Project Hawk and how.
So in the said group of technicians, he was the quote-unquote captain of these technicians, and later on he also headed the drone program in Titan.
And could you also let the chamber know what his position in Project Hawk was and how did he establish this position?
He certainly headed the program, and that is how he established that position would stand beyond the scope of my investigative report.
Your Excellencies, I would like to, the council would like to seek permission to refresh the memory of the witness. Mr. Chamberlain, could you please move to page number 16, the last paragraph?
Indeed. Yeah. Yes. So
the last full line. Could you read that loud, please?
The last line of my communication.
The last 4 lines. Could you read that out?
Yes. So in relation to the attacks that transpired, Charlie Fox authorized the use of the drones against the Targaryens. And in relation to that particular attack, the accused was given absolute control over the said deployment of the drone technology. So, and he was also the poster boy of Titan's weapon capabilities, and perhaps the only individual who understood the anatomy of the algorithms that underpin the said drone technology.
Were there any other findings from your investigation, Mr. Chief?
Yes. So another finding that came from the deposition of this of certain group of technicians who deposed before the Truth Commission. They also related to how the accused also made it his personal ambition to merge the drone technology with the nationalist identity of the Iranian political parties. And he also engaged in various persistent lobbying efforts that allowed him to use
that is all the council wanted to establish. Your Excellencies, the council has established what it needed to be established, and the examination chief has terminated.
Madam Counsel, this is your only witness or you have another witness?
We have another witness, Your Excellency.
All right.
Thank you, witness. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Can we ask questions to the witnesses?
Your Excellency?
Yeah, can we ask questions to the witnesses? Are we allowed?
Your Excellency, you can compel the witness to answer?
Yes. In that case, I would just like to draw his attention to his statement that he said that they found in their investigation that the drone is lethal. And also he has said in his statement that these drones were basically purchased for defensive purposes. So why does he think that these drones are lethal? What kind of, how lethal they are?
Your Excellency, regarding my personal opinion concerning how lethal the drone technology is, I believe that would not really be my area of expertise. However, how it can be inferred that the said drone technology was lethal and specialized can be evinced from the event that even transpired on the Holy Cross School, wherein there were severe casualties that were meted out through the use of such technology. And also, the investigative report, also one of the sources includes, the narratives of the Targaryen community and people who are directly affected by such attacks. So, yes.
Yes, please.
Your Honor, the defense counsel would not, the victim counsel would not like to begin the cross-examination of PW1. May I begin? Yes. Thank you, Your Honors. Mr. Chamberlain, could you please highlight the relationship between the Targaryen rebel forces and the ruling party? Would you say, quote, was it a highly distraught and tense environment between the two?
Indeed.
Mr. Chamberlain, could you confirm that the Targaryen loyalists within the Titanian army were voicing concerns about the treatment of their own community?
Indeed. In fact, the concern that was voiced, it was also sought to be crushed by Mr. Ryder, because
Absolutely.
he also sanctioned certain punitive measures towards that end.
Absolutely. Mr. Chamberlain, could you also please confirm that in the course of your investigation that you had interviewed members of a certain group of technicians?
Indeed.
And what specifically were the inferences drawn from this interview? Specifically, I'm referring to the personal ambitions of the accused.
As previously mentioned, the accused certainly sought to merge the drone technology with the nationalist identity. Also concerning Jack Ryder, they had a certain shared greed for power, which also translated into persistent lobbying efforts, which I previously mentioned during my testimony.
Absolutely. Mr. Chamberlain, were the autonomous drones advertised as, quote, an efficient and seamless method in eradicating antisocial behavior?
Indeed.
Mr. Chamberlain, in respect to Annexure 2, Your Honors, just as a point of procedural note, Your Honors, Annexure 2 was officially submitted to the Office of the Prosecutor, but as the prosecutors did not submit it to Exhibit A, the victim's legal counsel would like to do so. May I proceed, Your Honors?
Which annexure are you trying to, Mr. Counsel?
Annexure 2, page number 31. It was officially submitted to the Office of the Prosecutor, Your Honors.
So annexure, let's just get to Annexure 2. All right.
Page number 31.
Report. Is this a report of PW1?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Yes. What is it you want to do now?
I would like to submit Annexure 2 as Exhibit A, Your Honor.
It's already part of the record, but the prosecution must have marked it.
Your Honors, the pre-trial chamber exhibits can be shifted again during the actual trial chamber of an ICC, but the prosecutor did not do that. And as the victim's counsel, I would like to do that and continue my line of questioning, Your Honors.
Are you trying to say this Annexure 2 is not marked as an exhibit?
Not as of yet, Your Honor. Only in the pre-trial chamber, not in this specific trial, Your Honor. Not in the previous examination conducted by the prosecutor's counsel, Your Honor.
You want, learned counsel, you want to mark this as an exhibit?
Right now, Your Honor, and may I continue my line of questioning, Your Honors?
No, you need not, because it's not required under law, because that's a part of the records.
Absolutely.
Because that is presented by the prosecution.
Absolutely, Your Honor. Understood.
You can rely on that. You can question on the document, and anything relevant, particular, that you can cross-examine and show that to the witness.
Absolutely, Your Honor. Mr. Chamberlain, could you please confirm that the objectives of the Truth Commission of Titan were to, quote, investigate the conflicts of interest of Mr. Yanukovych and the company and his company, 3MZ?
The report would stand beyond my technical expertise, because as mentioned on page 15 out of 38 of the moot compromise in the general description, my testimony only relates insofar as the communication that was tendered to the office of the prosecutor.
Let me rephrase, Mr. Chamberlain. You were a member of the Truth Commission of Titan, correct?
Indeed. However, there were a series of investigative efforts that were led by the Truth Commission. One of them relating to the investigation of the conflict between February of 2020 and March of 2021.
Absolutely. Mr. Chamberlain, could you confirm that Mr. Yanukovych simultaneously served as the director of 3MZ, a private entity, and as the chief technical officer of Project Hawk, a program of the Titan military? I'm specifically referring to the report that your commission published.
Again, as I previously mentioned, that would stand beyond the scope of my personal expertise, because my testimony only relates to the communication that was sent to the office of the ICC, office of the prosecutor, and the communication has absolutely no mention of such an annexure.
Mr. Chamberlain, Your Honor, if I may refresh the memory of the witness.
Yes, yes.
You were a member of the Truth Commission of Titan, and your team was the one who led the entire investigation into the acts of the accused and the conflicts, correct? A simple yes or no, Mr. Chamberlain.
My membership was only insofar as the investigative efforts concerned the conflict. However,
absolutely,
because you may understand that the Truth Commission is not just led by a single person. It is a collective group effort. So my expertise only relates to the communication that was sent to the office of the prosecutor, and not it does not extend to any of the annexures that have been mentioned in the moot compromise.
Absolutely. Let's refer back to your written communication, Mr. Chamberlain.
Indeed.
Would you say, in light of your experience, did the conflict against the Targaryens allow Mr. Yanukovych and 3MZ to gain any sort of direct financial benefits? Simple yes or no question, Mr. Chamberlain.
In my communication, there is no mention of 3MZ.
Your Excellency, it has been stated quite a long time now with the PW1 that the allegations regarding the present to the ground report are not a part of the investigation which was conducted by Mr. Alex Chamberlain. So the questions regarding to that have been answered, that he is not the expert to answer the questions regarding the ground report.
Your Honor, if I may move on to the next line of questioning, Your Honors.
Yes.
Mr. Chamberlain, could you please outline the objectives of the autonomous drone program used by Titan?
Pursuant to the set of formal agreements, as previously mentioned, based on our investigative report, it was for strategic defense purposes, and its use was limited to the defense of the sovereignty of Titan.
And so, Mr. Chamberlain, in light of those inferences, could you confirm that the drone program was not purchased under the pretext of any offensives, correct?
Indeed.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honors, may the defense proceed with the cross-examination of the witness?
Yes, Madam Counsel for the defense. Why you did not begin cross-examination prior to the witness?
Your Honors, as per the rules, the prosecution, after that, the victim's counsel is supposed to cross-examine the witness and then the defense, Your Honors.
That's the procedure?
Indeed, Your Honors.
All right, you may proceed.
Much obliged, Your Honor. Mr. Chamberlain, you stated in your written deposition that TLF and OFC shared a distraught relationship. Is that true?
I have mentioned that the rebel forces and the National Parliament of Titan.
Please answer the question in yes or no format. They shared a distraught.
Objection, Your Excellency. The witness can make a statement after yes or no. They can explain their answer as well. That cannot be bound by the counsel for defense.
What is your question, learned counsel?
Your Honors, in the written deposition, the witness has stated that TLF and OFC shared distraught relationship. I'm just asking the witness if they affirm it or not.
It's already stated. What is there to affirm it? He's
Indeed,
bound
Your
by his
Honors.
statement.
I shall proceed with the same.
He cannot, even if he says he does not agree, where did statement go? Because it's already stated on oath.
Indeed, Your Honors. May I proceed with the cross-examination, Your Honors?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Chamberlain, are you aware of the same, the reasons for the distraught relationship?
If I may clarify to Mr. President, as mentioned on page 14 of 38, the various testimonies and profiles that have been formed part of the compromise are not to be construed as formal transcripts that are given under oath. It has been mentioned in the moot compromise, Your Excellency. Can you please repeat your question?
Indeed. In your written deposition, you've stated that they shared a distraught relationship. Are you aware of the reasons for the same?
How is it that relevant for this?
That would stand beyond the scope of my expertise, because it is beyond the scope of the investigative report.
Learned counsel for the defense, how is that relevant for your case?
Your Honors, the basis of the investigation conducted by the member of the Truth Commission, Mr. Chamberlain, is the mere basis that TLF and OFC shared distraught relationships. The basis of their whole investigation is the same thing, and I'm just affirming whether they adhere to the same or not.
Next question, please.
Indeed, Your Honors. In your written deposition, you stated that intelligence agencies reported unrest in the army factions, with Targaryen loyalists voicing dismay and concern. Is that true?
Indeed.
All right. And Mr. Ryder sanctioned punitive measures to crush all dissent. Yes or no?
Indeed.
All right. And your investigation revealed that by mid-July 2020, highly lethal and specialized drones were engaged by the government to suppress all opposition. Yes or no?
Indeed.
Point to be noted, Your Honors. The drone program was purchased from the US. Is that right?
Indeed.
Point to be noted, Your Honors. The drone program was purchased for strategic defense purposes, and its use was limited to the defense of the sovereignty of Titan. Yes or no?
Indeed.
Another point to be noted, Your Honors. The exchange between the US and the Titan also provided for dedicated provisions for a contingent of technicians from Titan to undergo a training program? Yes or no?
Indeed.
And Viktor Yanukovych, along with 6 others, went for the training program. Is that right?
Indeed, wherein Victor was captain of the program.
All right. And so Victor was the chief technician of the Project Hawk. Is that right?
Learned counsel, is there a dispute on this with regard to Victor being a technician and captain?
Your Honors, I understand your concern. My point with the question here is that he has just stated that Victor was the captain of the group of technicians. Your Honors, Viktor Yanukovych was the chief technician of Project Hawk. He was the captain of...
It's a misinterpretation of the facts. When he went for training to the United States of America, he was leading the technician group as the captain. But in his official designation in the government, he's the official technician of Project Hawk.
Your Honors, may I clarify the false notion created by the prosecutor? Your Honors, Viktor Yanukovych was the chief technician of the Project Hawk, which indicates that was the reason why he was the captain of the technicians that traveled. He was the captain in the mere position that he traveled as. That cannot be attributed to any criminal liability on his part.
You'll have to rephrase your question, learned counsel, because it is a case of prosecution that Victor was the technician. If you want to elicit anything else from the witness, you will have to rephrase it, whatever you want to elicit.
Moreover, Your Excellencies, I would like to just state one point. Pursuant to paragraph 8, page 5 of the moot compromise, it is an accepted fact by both the parties, pursuant to Rule 69 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence of the Rome Statute, that he was the chief technician of Project Hawk prior to April 2015. And he was the chief technician of Project Hawk since from 2015. And since 2010, he was an external consultant.
Yes, that is sustained. That is sustained.
Your Honors, may I proceed with the further line of questioning?
Yes, please proceed.
Indeed, Your Honors. So, Mrs. Chamberlain, Charlie Fox authorized the use of drones against the Targaryens. Is that true?
Yes, with the accused being given absolute control over the offense.
You stated in your written deposition that Mr. Viktor Yanukovych was the poster boy of Titan's weaponry capabilities. What evidence do you rely upon to conclude the same?
So our investigative report had multiple sources. Firstly, being the deposition by the group of technicians. Of course, we cannot reveal their identities for reasons concerning anonymity. Secondly, it also concerns the Targaryen community, their own set of narratives, and also certain other reports that we came across during our investigation.
Indeed. Proceeding to the next question. You stated in a written deposition that the accused was perhaps the only individual who understood the algorithms. You don't seem sure in the statement. Is there a particular reason?
That would be, again, beyond the scope of my professional expertise and your personal opinion. However, the investigative report, yes, does mention that he was perhaps the only individual.
Indeed. And you do recognize the ground report published by the Truth Commission as Annexure 2?
Indeed. However, I wield no...
I understand that you do not yield to the same. However, there is a statement in that particularly that the interviews that were conducted by the Truth Commission...
Objection, Your Excellency. It is already stated that it was beyond the scope of the testimony of the accused. Why are the questions cannot be asked about the ground report from the witness itself, Your Excellencies?
Your Honors, the witness just testified that he had relied upon Targaryen community's members to conclude their evidences. So I'm just asking the same, whether it was true or not.
Your Excellencies, the witness also testified that you
Hold on, Mr. Prosecution Counsel. Let the learned counsel for the defense put a question. We'll see whether it is to be sustained or overruled.
Indeed.
Yes, what is your question?
Your Honors. Witness, you have agreed to the fact that you have interviewed members of the Targaryen community as a part of your investigation. Is that right?
Indeed.
All right. So you're also aware with the fact that the Targaryen community is upset with the OFC government.
That would again stand beyond the scope of my...
I understand.
Would it be my personal opinion?
I understand. Would it be wrong to suggest that there is a possibility that your sources are biased?
So as if I may.
Yes, what is your objection, Mr. Prosecutor?
Your Excellency, the body is established by United Nations. The Defense Council is challenging the competence of United Nations.
Mr. Counsel for the prosecutor, the Defense Counsel has the right to cross-examine the witness.
Understood.
The witness will have to answer the question.
If I may, Your Excellency. Yes. So as previously mentioned, the Truth Commission is an apolitical organization. And as mentioned about the sources
Mr. Chamberlain,
of the
please answer the question in a yes or no format. Would it be wrong to suggest that there is a possibility that your sources may be biased?
As
yes or
previously
no?
mentioned, since there were multiple sources, so
Please answer
in a
the
way,
question.
Now,
Yes
we
or no?
want to hear the full question, Counsel. Full
Indeed,
answer.
Your Honors.
Please let him speak.
Indeed, Your Honors.
Since there are multiple sources, including different sets of narratives by the Targaryen community itself and other reports that we relied on, it eliminates any sort of bias that may creep into our investigation. Because we rely on multiple sources, even if it's the Targaryen community, we are not just talking to a single individual, it's the entire community that we place reliance on.
All right. And what evidence do you have to suggest that Victor had absolute control over the drone program?
I have already mentioned the sources of our investigative report.
Indeed. And would you say that your report is conclusive in that nature?
Indeed. We pride ourselves as being an apolitical, non-profit driven organization.
I understand. And my final question to you, please answer this in a yes or no format. Please adhere to it. Would it be wrong to suggest that Charlie Fox was handling the situation as per the pre-trial chamber's decision in the present case?
That would again stand beyond the scope of the investigative report and beyond the scope of my professional expertise, as it's a...
You stated in your written deposition that Charlie Fox was handling the situation, and you're contradicting.
We have mentioned that Charlie Fox authorized the use of drones.
Point to be noted, Your Honors.
With the head being, or rather the accused being given absolute control over the offensive.
I understand.
Deployment of the drone technology.
That's it from the defense, Your Honors.
What is the inference of your question?
I understand your concern, Your Honors. Your Honors, in the present case, Victor Yanakok was a mere technician in Project Hawk, and he was being the head of the entire procedure. Was Mr. Charlie Fox the president and Mr. Jack Ryder the military commander. Inferring any criminal liability from Victor Yanukovych, who has only fed in the data of the TLF militia leaders, would be entirely wrong.
And Counsel, you'll have to put a specific question to the witness to what you want to intend to elicit from the witness on the basis of report. You can rephrase your question once again to the witness. Now, what you have told me, you can rephrase that question to elicit your answer.
Indeed, Your Honors. Witness, you stated in your written deposition that Charlie Fox authorized the use of drones against Targaryens. So would it be wrong to suggest that Charlie Fox was the head of the situation?
Of the overall situation, again, that is beyond my professional expertise because the investigative
Indeed.
Only
Your Honors, that's it from the defense counsel.
The question, Mr. Alex PW1,
indeed,
is in view of your statement that Charlie Fox was the main person, the counsel's question is, would it be right to say that Charlie Fox is also liable for criminal prosecution with or without Victor?
Your Excellency, with due respect, since a question concerning liability would be a legal one, I do not think it would be appropriate for me to answer since I wield no legal expertise in the particular field. The job of the Truth Commission is to merely present facts as they are. And that's what I'm trying to do currently.
All right. All right. Thank you. Yes, learned counsel, you have any more questions?
No, Your Honor, that was it from the defense counsel.
All right. All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, Your Excellencies. Greetings.
Yes.
The counsel seeks permission to begin with her examination in chief, Your Excellencies.
Of your second witness?
Your Excellencies.
Yes, yes, you may proceed.
Obliged, Your Excellency. Good afternoon, Mr. Maruto. Am I audible?
Good afternoon. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you're audible and visible.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency, President and learned counsel.
Mr. Maruto, could you talk about your background and could you also state your occupation?
My background is that I've been working as a part of Project Fox for the last 7 years.
I am prosecutor. One minute, please. We would like to interrupt. I think there is an echo coming out. Your voice is not clearly audible. So you'll have to be clear. I understand that you may have be operating two systems at a time. You'll have to shut down one.
Just one second, Your Excellency. There's an issue, technical issue at my end. I'll just correct.
So, prosecutor, this is your second and last witness.
Indeed, Your Excellency.
Yes.
Your Excellencies, is my voice better now?
Yes, you are clear. Please proceed.
Mr. Martin, should I restate my question?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Could you please talk about your occupation and your background?
I am the first commander of the Royal Fleet of Titan. I've been associated with Project Hawk since the last 7 years. And before that, I was involved with the technical development of the drone systems of Titan.
Very well. Since you stated that you've been a technician before you were the first commander, could you let the court know if you were aware of any conflicts that were happening in the state of Titan?
So as far as I know, there was differences with the army and various TLF militia.
Very well. Regarding the attack that happened on 26/20/2020, could you tell us why did this operation take place?
So originally at around 10:15 in the morning, we received information that there was supposed to be a peaceful assembly in the Holy Cross School, that is the target area. And ostensibly it appeared that a large group of Targaryens had conducted the assembly and they wanted to protest against the present government. And I think that was the primary objective behind this operation.
Very well, Mr. Maruto. Also, what happened post this information was revealed to Jack Ryder?
Mr. Jack Ryder believed that it was supposed to be a recruitment drive. That was what his analysis was. But according to our analysis, it was supposed to be a peaceful protest against the government.
And when this information was revealed, what happened post that?
So post that, as I mentioned, 10:15, we got the information from our sources. At around 1 o'clock, the accused walked into our office and he told us that we had been instructed by Mr. Jack Ryder, who is the commander-in-chief, that we had to conduct the present operation in sync with the military's operations in that area. And so our internal protocol suggests that we are supposed to send the first drone as a reconnaissance mission and subsequently send the lethal ability weapons attached to it. But currently the accused told us that we were supposed to override this protocol, which he did eventually, by sending in the lethal weapons directly, irrespective of the reconnaissance mission.
Very well. What happened after the drones were sent to the school?
So after that, at around 1:15 or so, we gotten our first visuals from the 7 interconnected drones that we had. It showed several children and few members of the Targaryen militia that were firstly identified. Subsequently, one target person was identified and his frame was locked into the main frame by the accused. Eventually, this target person was shot down due to the sound of the shot, and as was anticipated, a lot of ruckus was caused in the Holy Cross School, because of which a stampede was caused. People started moving across, and due to this ruckus and the stampede, we were able to identify 4 other militias in the Holy Cross School campus.
Very well. When the drones identified these 4 other militia members, what happened then?
So our drones are programmed in a way and manner that they operate directly and they direct an all-out attack, an inferno of an all-out attack, if 4 or more members are detected. So this becomes a situation of extreme hostility, and the drones, they start to create the attack themselves. But the only situation is there is a 7-second kill command available, that if you stop the attack within the period of 7 seconds, the drones do not conduct the attack. So the drones themselves conducted the attack because the 4 militias were identified, and a huge impact was caused as big as a football field.
Very well, Mr. Maruto. I only have 2 questions for you now. Number 1, who programmed these drones?
So the drones were programmed, obviously, in Project Hawk, led by the accused himself. And he was one of the primary technicians behind it.
Very well. Last question. Who had the authority to suspend the command?
It was him. He had the authority to suspend the command.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Orang Maruto. Your Excellencies, the chief examination has been terminated.
Whom do you say that who attribute him means who?
The accused, Mr. Yankovic.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Maruto. Thank you, Your Excellencies.
Yes.
Your Honor, the victim counsel would not like to begin the cross-examination of prosecution witness 2.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honors. Mr. Maruto, could you confirm that in the statement, and I'm quoting here from the written communication, the tragedy which occurred in Holy Cross School was only due to the malified use of a weapon of mass destruction by a corrupt individual? And my question to you, Mr. Maruto, is that the term weapon of mass destruction specifically refers to the Project Hawk drones, correct?
Yes.
And by corrupt...
I'm sorry, so just to clarify that, the lethal abilities of the Project Hawk drones, not the drones.
Absolutely. And by corrupt individual, you mean the accused, Mr. Yankovic? Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Maruto. At 1 p.m., did the accused instruct your group to initiate the launch of Project Hawk in sync with the attached military unit at 1 p.m. specifically?
In sync with the military operations in that area, not military unit, but yes.
Absolutely. So could you outline, at the sake of repetition, Your Honors, could you outline the internal military protocols that Mr. Yankovic overrode?
So the internal military protocol requires that the initial drone that we sent has to be a reconnaissance mission that is supposed to take in videos, infrared videos, and identify if there are militants or a situation of hostility may arise. However, this internal protocol was overridden, and even in the first set of drones that we sent, we attached them with lethal ability weapons. This was the internal protocol that we were supposed to override because we were ordered by the accused himself.
And so, Mr. Maruto, could you confirm that Mr. Yankovic was only a chief technician of Project Hawk? A simple yes or no?
He was the leader of Project Hawk, and we were supposed to be subordinates to him.
Absolutely. And so, Mr. Maruto, my question to you is this: in your years of experience serving as the Royal Fleet of Titan, do you believe that the accused had the necessary military qualifications to make such a decision, to override internal military protocols? A simple yes or no?
Absolutely yes.
Let's move on. Mr. Maruto, did the accused provide the kill command for the first militia leader by locking in his image in the mainframe server of the drones?
Yes, as I mentioned.
And so, Mr. Maruto, you've already mentioned this in the examination in chief. You were able to reasonably foresee the circumstances which would follow after such an act, correct?
Yes, as anticipated, as I mentioned.
And so, Mr. Maruto, my question to you is this: was Mr. Yankovic also able to reasonably foresee such circumstances which would follow?
I would most definitely presume so.
A point to be noted, Your Honors, a subordinate of Mr. Yankovic is able to reasonably foresee certain circumstances, but Mr. Yankovic claims that he himself doesn't. Let's move on to the next line of questioning. Mr. Maruto, could you confirm that you believe that the accused is, quote, a highly ambitious and opportunistic individual capable of unforgiving and ruthless tactics against his adversaries?
Yes.
Who is this question relevant for your case, Mr. Counsel?
Goes to shows character, Your Honor. Goes to show character, Your Honor, and motive. We'll substantiate that later in a closing statement as well, Your Honor.
You'll have to ask an affirmative question that he does not have bad character rather than asking him about his character.
Your Honor, Mr. Maruto has been working with the accused for the past 7 years. I believe that 7 years is a reasonable time period to gauge the character analysis of the accused. But let me rephrase my question, Your Honors. I've acknowledged your concern, Your Honors. Mr. Maruto, could you confirm that there was an elaborate scheme utilized by Mr. Yankovic in selling, and I'm quoting here from your written communication, in selling greed and bribing his way through the Titanian military?
Yes.
And Mr. Maruto, could you also confirm that your officers were invited to serve as consultants for his private company's operations?
I'm sorry, I did not get your question.
Could you confirm that your... Can you hear me, Mr. Maruto? Your Honor, is it only me or is Mr. Maruto's
you can again ask him again once again.
Yeah, please.
Mr. Maruto, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can completely hear you now.
Absolutely. So thank you, Mr. Maruto. Could you confirm that your officers were invited to serve as consultants for his private company's operations?
Yes.
And so the same operations, the same company, which was later used to advertise Project Hawk to the Titanian military, correct? And so, Mr. Maruto, last and final question. Would it be a reasonable inference to draw, in light of all of these submissions that you've just mentioned, that existed a direct financial nexus, a motive for the accused to build close working relationships with the leaders of the Titanian army and sell such weapons of mass destruction for personal financial motives? A simple yes or no.
So there is not substantial evidence to it, although there is substantial hearsay to it. And all the circles in the army do keep talking about it again and again. So since I've heard it for so long, I have a very strong feeling that it is entirely true. And there was an elaborate plan in place. But I do not have... Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maruto. No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honors, may the defense proceed with the cross-examination?
Defense, please proceed.
Mr. Maruto, the Project Hawk is aimed at minimum requirement of human participation with maximum impacts on the target. Yes or no?
Yes.
And your intel sources on July 26, 2020 conveyed the chatter in a local community that of a massive civil assembly being organized by Targaryens. Yes or no?
Yes, the sources told us that.
And the assembly was to be the assembly convened was for the Targaryen strength and unity against the federal government. Yes or no?
Again, the intel sources suggested that.
All right. And Commander Jack Ryder interpreted the assembly as a recruitment drive, ordering the forces to track the movement. Yes or no?
Yes.
And by 1 p.m., the accused walked into your office and informed that supervising Commander Jack Ryder instructed the initiated of the launch. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Point to be noted, Your Honors. You've suggested that...
PW2, have you understood the question?
Yeah, yes, Your Excellency.
The question was that when accused came into your place, that time he was instructed by Jack Ryder, and you have said yes.
Yeah, so the accused walked into the office and told us that we had been instructed, the entire group had been instructed by Mr. Jack Ryder, a main commander, that we had to conduct this operation in sync with the military's operation in that region.
All right.
Mr. Maruto, you've stated that there was an internal protocol of reconnaissance drones being launched in the first phase and then lethal in the later stage. This is the internal protocol of the army, I believe, because you work in the army as a first commander and you've been a serving officer. Yes or no?
This is the Air Force, but yes, this is the internal protocol.
It's an internal protocol of the army. All right. Point to be noted, Your Honors.
Yes.
You were informed by the accused that the school is an empty decoy being used as a hideout facility by Targaryens.
Yes, we were informed that.
Indeed.
That was proved wrong due to the reconnaissance we had.
And at around 1:20 p.m., the drones threw at you a footage of children on the campus. Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Maruto, you serve as the first commander of the Royal Fleet of Titan. Why didn't you abort the mission or report to Jack Ryder for the same?
Objection, Your Honor, mischaracterization of the witness. He first, during the incidents of July 26, he only served as a member of Project Hawk. He served as the Royal Fleet of... He was only later promoted to the Royal Fleet of Navy, Your Honor. That is a mischaracterization of the trajectory of the career of the prosecution witness, to Your Honor.
Your Honor, there is no time period stated for when Mr. Maruto was when Mr. Maruto was the first commander of Royal Fleet of Titan. In the present case, during Project Hawk, he was the first commander.
The counsel,
Your Honor,
of the victim,
Your Honor, if I may, Your Honor, if I may add,
victim. Let me ask you this question: how our question is affecting the victims? How this question of the defense counsel is affecting the victims? Why you are objecting?
Your Honor, it largely relates to the procedural matters of the ICC. Only after the accused has been convicted on certain grounds under the Drone Statute, only then can submissions for reparations for the victims be drawn. And so, as of now, the VLR's objective is to still at the present case, still seek to convict the accused, only after which we'll be making a written submission for reparations, Your Honor. So this goes to show that we are still in the objective of convicting the accused, Your Honor.
Right. So thank you for drawing that into our attention. So let us ask the questions, and you can point out in the closing argument that why we should not consider these questions.
Absolutely, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honors, may I proceed with the cross-examination?
Yes.
Much obliged, Your Honors. Mr. Maruto, again asking my question. Why didn't you abort the mission or report to Jack Ryder for the same, considering you were the first commander of the Royal Fleet of Titan?
In the circles of the Air Force and the Army, we have this concept called insubordination.
I'm sorry, your voice is echoing. Could you...
Is it better now?
There's a bit of an echo, but please continue.
You may have to switch off your Bluetooth earphones. Witness.
I think it was the issue. I'm really sorry, sir.
Yeah. Yes, you're audible now.
Essentially was the issue. I'm really sorry, Your Excellencies. Addressing your question, Counsel, I was supposed to be a subordinate to Mr. Yankovic in Project Hawks, since this operation was also part of Project Hawks in itself, and essentially I could not have acted insubordinate and gone on against his own orders.
Mr. Maruto, are you aware of the command chain that functions in Titan?
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that?
Objection, Your Excellency. It has been established that he is an insubordinate to the chief technician of the Project Hawk.
Objection.
Your Honors, Mr. Maruto is the first commander of the Royal Fleet of Titan.
Proceed. You're sustained. Please, your question is sustained.
Much obliged, Your Honors. Proceeding forth to my next question, Mr. Maruto. In your written deposition, you stated that on that day, you did not receive any video feed of any firearm. Is that right?
We did not receive any feed of firearms, but we received feeds of some machetes and some knives.
Point to be noted, Your Honors. Moving forth, you received confirmed visuals of a militia leader. Is that right?
Of one militia leader in the
Indeed. And there were men stationed in hiding outside the school, yes or no?
Yes.
All right. And there is a lethal stage in the drones. Is that right?
Yes.
And the lethal stage does not require human command. Is that right?
It does not require human command if it sees a situation of extreme hostility, which had occurred in the present.
It occurred in the present case. Point to be noted, Your Honors. Moving forth, on that day, the drones and the army on their cue acted in unison. Is that true?
Yes, but I was not informed of the army's operation because
Point to be noted, Your Honors. Who was the military commander, Mr. Maruto?
I'm not aware of that because I am only involved with the Royal Fleet and with Project Hawks.
Your Honor's point to be noted, Mr. Maruto is a part of the army and he's not aware who is the military commander. Moving forth, which community do you belong to, Mr. Maruto?
I am a proud Targaryen.
You're a proud Targaryen. And are you aware of the fact that the TLF was instigating Targaryen soldiers of the army to become defectors and fight for the Targaryen cause? Yes or no?
Objection, Your Honor, pure conjecture. Nowhere is it mentioned that there were specific instances to defect and instigate conflicts within the army, Your Honor. Pure conjecture.
Your Honors, if I may refer you to paragraph 19 of the official compromise, it clearly states that information was received that TLF was instigating soldiers of the Targaryen army, of the Titans army of Targaryen soldier of community, and becoming defectors and for fighting for the cause of the army, fighting for the cause of the Targaryens.
Yes, that's a matter of fact. I think that is what the prosecution case is also about.
Your Honor, indeed. That's why. That's what my next question is about.
Yes, proceed.
Your Honors, Mr. Maruto is a Targaryen. How is it to believe that your testimony today isn't biased towards the Targaryen community and is unbiased in nature?
If I may point out the fact, if you can see my testimony, the entire written testimony, there's only mention of Targaryens once. During the entire course of my testimony, I always use the word militia, because anybody against the government is supposed to be something anti-national. in the present case. So whether or not they are Targaryens or Orionians is not for my concern. I've only used militia, if you can see my entire testimony.
So you do recognize that there were militia in that school?
Yeah, we did recognize 2 or 3 militias. I'm sorry.
Indeed,
4
Your Honors. Much obliged, Your Honors. That's it from the Defense Counsel.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, Mr. President, and thank you, Counsel.
Yes, prosecution is done.
Your Honor, the counsel seeks permission to begin with the chief examination of the victim witnesses.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. The counsel seeks permission to bring forth, counsel like to bring forth victim witness 1.
Yes.
Victim witness 1, am I clearly audible and visible to you?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. The counsel would, I will now administer the oath pursuant to Article 66, subclause 1 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence. Please repeat after me.
Yes.
I solemnly declare.
I solemnly declare.
And I will speak the truth.
That I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Witness, could you please state your name and occupation for the record?
Yes, I'm Dr. Alexander. I am the Special Instructor, 3rd Officer with the Naval Academy of the United States of Maryland.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. Could you please highlight your role as Special Instructor in the Naval Academy of the United States?
Yes, I have been coaching engineers handling advanced weapons with artificial engineering features for a period of almost 14 years now.
14 years. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Were you involved in the training of technicians from Titan?
Yes, I was, since I was assigned to train the contingent of technicians from Titan under the cooperation deal between the United States and Titan.
Thank you. Could you explain to the court the curriculum of this training course?
Definitely. So by virtue of the extensive curriculum that we have with respect to such training programs that deal with active warfare using drone technology, it is a mandatory requirement for all instructors to spend at least 11 hours of the entire training program in detailing out the scope and ambit of international humanitarian laws, the Geneva Conventions, the rules of engagement and battlefield, as well as the different potential scenarios possible, etc.
Right, different potential scenarios and 11 hours of such training is provided. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes, I just want to reiterate that. Thank you. In your expertise as a trainer for 14 years, could you please explain the specific training that is provided when such weapons are embedded with artificial intelligence?
Definitely. So as part of a curriculum as well, we do have few modules that deal with artificial intelligence embedded weapons. And with respect to such modules, it has been our routine practice to provide all the master programmers, given the designation of the designated authority, with extensive training and lessons so that they're able to make quick decisions that can adversely impact human life within 3 to 4 seconds of the first sighting of the potential collateral damage.
I would just like to reiterate this for the benefit of code, 3 to 4 seconds of first sighting of collateral damage. Is that right? Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Alexander. Could you highlight on the training that was provided to the men who were sent from Titan?
So we have a set curriculum when it comes to active warfare using drone technology. And the same curriculum was taught to the men that came from Titan. The similar instructions were given to them.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Alexander. So in your expert opinion, would a captain of the group of technicians be considered as a designated authority?
Yes, he would.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. What equipment do you use to enhance these training modules?
So we usually use the state-of-art audio-visual stimulation so that we're able to put these engineers or technicians into a virtual scenario which mimic real-life situations so that it is able to ensure that the authorized signatories do have a certain level of sophisticated sensory awareness about the visuals or the images that appear on the screen in the control room, and so that they can accordingly take life-saving decisions on the battlefield.
Right, life-saving decisions, and this is the purpose of these simulations. Am I right? Thank you. So why do you spend so much time in training, like the duration of the training module?
Yes, so the reason why we emphasize so much on this and why so much time and effort is spent on this is because of the fact that we do understand that once autonomous drones or weapons are unleashed, they can cause massive destruction to life, limb, and property.
Thank you. Could you describe the algorithm used in these weapon systems?
So the functioning of the algorithm is such that once the initial go ahead is perceived by the designated authority, the algorithm or the drone will not think twice before figuring out its potential victim. All it does is that it will continue to operate until unless no life can be detected through the biometric sensors that are
Thank you.
embedded or
I'm
installed
so sorry
in
to
the
cut you
drone.
off. I'm so sorry to cut you off. I'm pressed for time. So I would just like to reiterate that once the initial go ahead is perceived by the designated authority. Am I correct?
Yes.
Right. So could you, it has been established by the testimony of Mr. Maruto that the accused uploaded the image of the militia leader onto the mainframe. What does this mean with reference to the weapons system?
So that would that was basically mean giving the thumbs up or a go ahead initialization instruction by the designated authority.
Point to be noted, Your Honor. Could you please comment on the drones that were used in Titan?
So, like as per my testimony, I can't really talk about the nature of the drones that were used. However, most of these drones, the offensive drones, are well equipped with biometric charge sensors, microchips, and cameras. So they're quite powerful and they can identify the weakness, lock their position, even adapt to the environment or the
Thank you.
movement.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. I'm so sorry. I've gotten the point. I think the court has also understood. Can you comment upon the real brain of the drone system?
Definitely. So when it comes to autonomous weapons or autonomous drones, though they are autonomous in nature, they're still governed by the human brain because the technology as of now is not so advanced where they can be 100% divorced of human interaction. It's true that when it comes to autonomous drones and weapons, there is minimum human interference. However, I'd like to clarify that minimum human interference does not mean and does not equate to no human interference.
Thank you. Thank you for that point, Dr. Alexander. Can you shed light on the training that's provided as to how to react in these situations when suspected collateral damage is detected?
So what we essentially train them, and we actually spend a number of hours in these training, is that of how they can abort missions or how they can suspend the all-fire programming of the drones when they realize that there's going to be potential collateral damage, which is higher than what they really want in their
higher than the price in your own words, am I right?
Yes, higher than the price, yes.
Thank you, thank you. Last question, Dr. Alexander. Do you believe that these drones can operate in an environment which is completely divorced of human control, just adding on to your previous answer?
They cannot operate in an environment which is 100% divorced of human interaction. And that's precisely the reason why even right now in the United States, we do make sure that there's one human person who is in the loop, no matter however remotely placed with the functioning and the mechanisms of these drones, autonomous weapons.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander, for that testimony. Your Honors, the counsel would like to now close their examination in chief of victim witness 1. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
Counsel seeks permission to begin with the cross-examination of the victim witness 1.
Yes, prosecutor.
Much obliged. Good morning, good morning, Dr. Alexander. I am the prosecutor in the present case, and I shall be conducting your cross-examination. I hope I am aptly audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. You talked about how the curriculum includes international humanitarian law. So, is it true that if the curriculum includes that, the accused would be well versed, or the technicians who take that curriculum would be well versed with the concepts of protective property, civilians, Geneva Conventions, etc.?
Yes, they would be. Like I said, it is a mandatory requirement to spend at least 11 hours of the entire training period in detailing and like the scope and the ambit of the international humanitarian laws, the Geneva Conventions, rules of engagement, battlefield, etc.
Do you teach this curriculum, or there are some other instructors for this?
I am the session instructor, so I make sure that all these are abided by, but the instructors are quite well versed and professionals who undertake these things.
You talked about how these designated authorities and the master programmers are able to assess collateral damage within 3 or 4 seconds of so that like it is all right. So they are trained that way, that the algorithms must be programmed in such a manner that the collateral damage can be assessed
in 3 to 4 seconds.
So will it be fair to say that it can be foreseen what the outcome of a particular algorithm would be?
The point being that these algorithms are embedded by a human mind. So it's quite possible that they do know what is going to be the outcome of it.
Okay. All right. So you talked about how these drones particularly have a real brain, which is the human mind, and they cannot function without. So it is fair to say that to a certain extension, there is a human control element here.
Definitely, there is. Because no matter how autonomous you may say a drone or a machine is or a weapon is as of now, be it with respect to the initialization, the deployment, even of giving the instruction for the kill command, is all governed by the human brain.
Right. One final question. Are the drones in their own self capable of distinguishing between combatants and civilians?
Not really, because that's exactly why these drones and most of the offensive drones have cameras and biometrically charged sensors, because it is actually the human mind behind and the person sitting behind the desk who through this can identify of who is the person and who isn't. So that is actually like I said, it is the human brain which governs the functioning and mechanisms of these drones.
I understand. So they are, in a sense, indiscriminate weapons. Will that be correct to say?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So they are, in a sense, indiscriminate weapons. Will that be correct to say? Without any, if humans don't operate them?
Yes.
Thank you. That was all for cross-examination by the prosecution side. Thank you so much. Much obliged.
Mr. Prosecutor, what is your intent in cross-examination of this witness?
Indeed. Your Excellencies, there were two things which were pointed out by the cross-examination of the witness. One, with regard to the fact that accused is well-versed with the laws of international humanitarian law. So he knew that the school is a protected zone pursuant to Article 52 of the Additional Protocol 2 of the Geneva Conventions. He was aware that civilians are not to be attacked. And if there is a doubt that whether or not the assembly is of a civilian or a combatant, the doubt must always be settled in favor of the civilians. That is what the Additional Protocol 2 talks about. Secondly, Your Excellencies, one more fact which was pointed out was with regard to indiscriminate weapons. Your Excellencies, pursuant to Additional Protocol 1, Article 51.
Right. Do you also have time to address arguments on the main after your examination of the witnesses?
Indeed not, Your Excellencies. I was trying to answer the question which the Excellencies...
No. Do you also, are you permitted to argue after the cross-examination?
Indeed not.
All right.
Obliged.
Your Honors, may the defense proceed with the cross-examination of the witness?
Yes.
Much obliged, Your Honors. Dr. Alexander, how long have you been coaching the engineers?
14 years.
All right. And you coached the engineers from the Titan as well?
I was assigned to train them, yes, with my group of instructors.
During what period did the technicians work from Titan were coached from you?
So they trained with us for a period of 1.5 years, which was somewhere around 2017 to 2018.
All right. And is it true that no operator can undo the adaptations developed in a drone? Yes or no?
I would like to elaborate on that because that is only with respect to the internal functioning of the drones or the mechanisms. It has nothing to do with the mind or the fact that you can't control a drone, because in the end, like I said, even though they're autonomous and there's definitely minimum human interaction, but that should not be equated with no human interaction.
Indeed. In your written deposition, you stated a distinction between automated weapons and autonomous weapons. So automated weapons require human command and autonomous weapons do not require a human command. Is that right?
I would again like
to please answer it in a yes or no format. Is that right?
Let the witness answer, madam. You can't expect the witness to just say yes or no. Witness is permitted to elaborate.
I would like to clarify on that. It's true that when it comes to automated weapons and all, there is a human ownership, and if you compare that with respect to autonomous weapons, there is less, but it is just the degree of human ownership or human interaction that makes a difference over here. With respect to automatic, there is, but like I again said, with respect to autonomous, though they're autonomous in nature, there is yet human interaction that over there.
All right. And the drones in Titan, they were autonomous weapons, yes or no?
Like I said, I'm not really, like I mentioned in my testimony, I can't really...
Indeed.
I don't have an opinion about the nature of the weapons that we're using.
Indeed. Could you please state the nature of the most offensive drones?
Definitely. So the nature of the most offensive drones that can be used are biometrically charged they are biometrically charged sensors, cameras, and microchips, which are so they're powerful enough to identify the target, log their position. also adapt to the movement of the targets, and with great precision deliver the ammunition that has been embedded in their mechanical body.
Indeed. Then how do you say that they're indiscriminate weapons, considering you just stated that they're very capable for distinguishing between combatants and civilians?
I didn't say that. It's true
You
that they
just
have
stated that they are very capable of distinguishing the targets. That indicates that they are not
I said that
indiscriminate
they're
weapons.
capable of identifying their targets, and these targets can be identified through biometrically charged sensors. But that is also because only when you feed a command as from your human. That's why.
Indeed.
That's exactly why you also
Honest.
have cameras to identify the potential collateral damage that can be caused, or the person to whom you're trying to.
Indeed.
Who is the target over here? That's why.
Indeed, a point to be noted, Your Honor.
Yes.
In your training program, you teach the ability to take decisions that can impact human life within 3 to 4 seconds of citing a potential collateral damage.
That's true.
And that was taught to the training contingent that came from Titan.
Yes.
And I believe your training program does not specifically focus on a single person. It is taught to everyone. It is taught to everyone. Indeed. And are you aware of the situation in Titan?
I'm not, because I really don't think that the United States would really know what's happening. We were just, our only job was to train them as per the cooperation deal and the agreement that was signed between the two states.
Indeed. And were you present in Titan on July 26th? I believe not.
No.
All right. So how do you hold the opinion regarding the designated authority that a captain of the chief technicians can be a designated authority in Titan when you're not aware of the situation in Titan?
The very fact that the accused over here was the captain of the contingent that came also makes him a designated authority. The fact, as been stated by my counsel, that he was the chief also does state him to be a designated authority, as that's a person who is a very high, powerful position. And the reason why I can say so is because he was fully aware, had full knowledge, was very well trained by us to make quick decisions within a period of 3 to 4 seconds, by which he could save the lives of people. That's why.
So, Dr. Alexander, you do remember Mr. Viktor Yanukovych training him?
Yes, because he was a captain of the contingent.
You do remember you do remember that you trained Mr. Viktor Yanukovych, but you do not remember the period you trained him.
I did mention it was a period of 1.5 years from from 2017 to 2018. Sorry.
All right. And my final question: any particular reason why you do not remember the others, considering that Victor was not the only one?
First of all, we don't differentiate between any of the members of the contingent.
So I believe
like I mentioned, same instructions were given. Everything same was taught to all contingents that come to the foreign contingents. The only reason, because he was a captain, is why I remember, since we were supposed to constantly be in touch with the captains for the various training programs and modules that we were supposed to undertake with respect to the active warfare using drone technology program.
Indeed, Dr. Alexander. That's it from the defense side, Your Honors.
Yes.
The defense counsel seeks permission to call defense witness 1-4.
Your
Yes.
Honor, I'm so sorry to interject, but the victim witness 2 has not been examined.
Pardon me, Your Honors. It was my fault. Pardon.
Yes.
Your Honor, the counsel seeks permission to bring forth victim witness 2 to.
Yes.
Victim witness 2, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Am I clearly audible and visible to you?
Yes, you are, counsel.
Okay, counsel, I will now administer the oath pursuant to Article 66, subclause 1 of Rules of Procedure and Evidence. Please repeat after me. I solemnly declare.
Counsel, can you give me a second, please?
Sure, witness, no problem.
And I apologize for the delay. Sorry, counsel.
No worries. Can we proceed?
Yes.
Counsel, please repeat the oath as under Rule 66, Clause 1. I solemnly declare.
I solemnly declare.
That I will speak the truth.
That I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Thank you, witness. Witness, could you please elaborate on the nature of the people who were present in Holy Cross School. I'm so sorry, let me rephrase that. At the outset, the representative of the victims is extremely apologetic that you had to go through such a traumatic experience, and we understand that recalling these events would be hard for you, but it's for the benefit of the trial. And please make sure if you feel uncomfortable at any moment, please do let the council know. Could you please highlight the nature of the people who were present in Holy Cross School on 26 July 2020?
Sure, counsel. That day, fortunately, there were less classes being scheduled. Not all, but few classes. There was staff members, and there were these party members who had come or gathered over there. They were in the boarding block of the school.
Right. Witness, I would just like to emphasize, ask a particular question regarding the answer. So there were boarding houses present in the compound of the school, am I correct? Thank you. What happened at 1:30 p.m., Witness?
Around 1:30 p.m., I guess, was the time when we heard the first shot being fired. We heard the shot firing shattering the glass window and killing a man there itself in the classroom.
Right. Could you please highlight for the benefit of the court what followed this event?
We all started panicking. I mean, no one would have thought of such kind of event taking place in a place like school. So we were all asked to evacuate, and as soon as the shot was fired, I heard around 30 children screaming at once. It was a state of panic. We all were asked to evacuate the building as soon as possible.
Right. Could you please describe what you saw as soon as you evacuated the building?
Death, counsel.
Right. Okay, so in your own words, I am so sorry to reiterate this. Did you see people from the boarding shelter also running towards the exit?
Yes. As soon as we were told to evacuate the building, we all the children and us, we stepped out of the academic building. I saw the party members also coming out of the boarding building. And just imagine, counsel, the moment we came out, we saw those hovering machines or some kind of aeroplanes up in the sky, which were there to shoot us. And let alone be this, as we came forward moving towards the exit so that we could escape from those shooting airplanes, we saw those men dressed in uniform. There were men dressed in uniform standing with guns at the only exit present in the school, and they were shooting at us.
Okay, right. Right. So, in your own words, you stated that when there was constant shooting, you realized that you could not move forward nor retract your way back into the school. Can you describe what happened after that?
Counsel, can you imagine the situation we were in there? We were trapped in a school compound where we were having shots being fired at us from all directions.
Right.
From the front, we had those army men, and from the sky itself, which is infinite, you had no place to hide from those flying machines. It was just
deeply
like
sympathetic, Witness. I have no idea what you've gone through. I'm really sorry that you had to experience this. Right. Last question, Witness, I do not want to bother you more. Clearly, this is a very traumatic experience. Could you please confirm the status of these victims of the ruthless massacre? Just reiterating.
It was horrible. I could see every fraction of seconds, you would see some limbs or flash or blood being sprouted or flashed in air. The most horrible and inhuman experience which occurred to me at that point of time was that there was this tiny little girl who was trying to escape of that miserable situation. She was trying to climb the wall and go the other side. But at the same point, I saw those machines firing through the back of her head and the bullet piercing through her eyes, and her brain got smashed all over. This was the most inhuman incident I think I have ever. No one can dream of it.
I'm once again, witness the council have to reiterate, we're deeply apologetic and we're doing everything that we can to help the victims of the situation. Your Honors, the council would like to conclude the examination in chief of this witness. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, witness.
The counsel, the prosecutor seeks permission of the bench to proceed. At the outset, I would like to apologize for the atrocities that you faced and for the complete situation, victim. And lastly, I would say just have trust in the procedures of the court and justice would be served. I would not ask much questions, just quite a few confirmatory. Was it true that the military on the ground also attacked and started firing at the children?
Yes. Drones and the military, they constantly kept shooting people all over the compound.
You stated in your testimony that we were convinced that the army must have decided to attack our children as well. Is it true that previous to this, there have been other situations where the army has been atrocious towards the people of the Tango region?
I have no idea.
Is it also true that the army refused to provide any assistance when it was asked by the survivor victims? It was stated in your testimony. Yeah.
This is another inhuman action being done by them. We were denied of any treatment which could have served several lives all over there, but the military men just took our positions from us.
I understand. Was there in any situation a fact where the drones where the drones were shooting at the army men as well?
So it was so chaotic at that point of time. You see there, you see a thud and a body falling, you see there and a body falling. At that point of time, I couldn't recollect who was being attacked. I just saw mankind being slaughtered.
Thanks. I really apologize for the situation. Just one final question. Are you familiar with the TLF members, and were there any TLF members present in the school that day?
Counsel, I seek to be anonymous on these kinds of questions, and that is why I have asked my counsels that such personal information, I'm not comfortable giving such personal information.
I must have come across as wrong. I'll reframe my question. It's not regarding your personal information. I'm just asking that on that day, was any the Liberation Force member present in the school?
I do not recollect that, but I just know that there were some members of party. Other than that, I have no idea.
Thank you. That was all for the purpose of the cross-examination, Your Excellencies.
Your Honors, may the defense proceed with the cross-examination. Much obliged, Your Honors. Witness, we deeply sympathize with you. I recognize that you suffered great trauma and loss. You must remember it all, considering it might have been your worst day. Is that right?
To some extent.
Would it be correct to state that the members of the party were assembled in the building adjacent to the main building?
Yes, that was the block.
And the machines and the soldiers did not stop shooting at you, right?
Yeah.
The shots were fired from both the soldiers and the flying machines.
Yes.
And how long did this exercise go on for, the soldiers and the drones shooting?
30 to 40 minutes, I guess.
And your possessions were snatched away by the soldiers, yes or no?
Yes, those men that were standing at the gate, they snatched our possessions.
All right. And you said that there were flying objects. Were they drones?
I do not know what drones are, but those were kinds of airplane or flying machines, and they had the ability to shoot.
I understand. You stated that there were less classes on that day. Was there any particular reason for the same?
I have no idea regarding that.
And can you rule out the possibility that it might have been because there were members of the party assembled there?
I don't know.
Indeed. And you stated that 30 children screamed when the shots were fired.
The scream was so loud that it seemed to me as if around 30 children might have screamed at the same point when the bullet shattered the class window and killed the man.
Indeed. Do you know who the man was who was killed?
I have no idea. But there was a man who was killed over there.
I understand. And did the members of the party often come into the school?
I don't know.
Indeed. And the members on that day, were they armed? Did you see anyone possessing arms or weapons or something?
Not to my recollection.
All right. And my final question to you, have you heard Mr. Viktor Yanukovych's name, or did you see him on that day?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Indeed. Thank you so much for answering. I recognize that it was very difficult for you.
Thank you,
Much
Counsel.
obliged, Your Honors.
The defense counsel seeks permission to call defense witness 1 for chief examination. Your Honors, with your permission, may I ask the witness to take oath pursuant to Article 69 of the Rome Statute? Witness, am I clearly audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Please repeat after me. I solemnly declare that.
I solemnly declare that.
I will speak the truth.
I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Witness, can you please state your name, nationality, occupation, and age for the record?
My name is Viktor Yanukovych. My nationality is Titan. My occupation is I'm the chief technician of Project Hawk, and my age is 49 years.
Do you hold any other position professionally?
I used to be the director of 3MZ.
Okay. Mr. Victor, regarding your knowledge and expertise, what field or area are you well versed with?
So I'm mostly into software, which means I handle the technical aspects of Project Hawk, which is the input of data and specifically just administrative and technical aspects pertaining to the drones themselves. I didn't have much to do with the ammunition or weaponry.
So do you have any knowledge or expertise about any other field or area?
No knowledge regarding anything other than the software input.
Do you have any knowledge about arms and weaponry used by military and the army?
Not at all.
Mr. Victor, regarding the incident of July 26, 2020, how did you get to know about the situation in Holy Cross School?
So the information was said to me by Jack Ryder, who was my commander at the time. So I think at this point, it comes back to the hierarchy that I had spoken to you about. So the topmost is the government, then we have the military, and then we have Project Hawk, which means Project Hawk is answerable to both the government and the military, which made Commander Jack Ryder our superior when it came to acknowledging orders or getting any information relating to whatever's happening outside.
Mr. Victor, what happened after you got the information from Jack Ryder?
So after I got information from Jack Ryder, I was commanded, or I was ordered by Commander Jack Ryder to launch the drones. Once I had launched it, I had left the venue. I had no involvement after the launch.
Okay. How was the decision taken? Was there any decision taken?
Yeah, there was a vote taken where there was a 4:2 majority for launching the drones against the militia that was supposedly in the Holy Cross School.
Mr. Victor, can you tell the court the details about that particular decision? Like what in your knowledge was the target, or any further details you want to present before the court?
So the details that Jack Ryder had given us about the situation at the time was that the militia were present in the Holy Cross School, in the venue that they wanted to launch the drones to, and there were no civilians as per the information that we had received. However, there were 2 officers who had dissented against our unanimous decision to go ahead with the drone attack. But Jack Ryder seemed pretty convinced that the attack was necessary against the militia owing to the increasing violence and the skirmishes that had already existed previously. So we went ahead and followed his order anyway, despite the dissent being given by the other officers.
Yes. Witness, you stated earlier that you are a chief technician of Project Hawk. So can you tell the court what exactly is Project Hawk?
Okay, Project Hawk is a mission to develop autonomous weapon systems, which means we want to minimize human interference in defense as a whole. And this comes in the form of drones, which is your aerial vehicles, your unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and other artificial intelligence in the defense system itself.
Is that Project Hawk part of the military or the army?
Project Hawk is subordinate to the military and army, which means we follow the orders of the military or the armed forces.
All right. And my last question to you, witness. Your business interest is being probed in this trial, right? So do you want to comment on that particular allegation?
So as far as the corrupt practices or allegations from Mr. Maruto are concerned, I have only worked with him once. I had only confronted him once during Project Hawk when we were launching the drones on the 26th. Other than that, I do not know where these allegations from corruption come from. Yeah, sure, I lobby with a lot of private corporations, but commercial lobbying is not a crime, and I don't see how that can enforce or reinforce the corruption allegations against me.
Thank you, witness. That's all from the examination in chief of Defense Counsel, Your Honors.
Yes, cross-examination.
The counsel seeks permission for cross-examination.
Yes, please go ahead.
Obliged. Your Excellencies, I would request you to please turn to paragraph 21 of the moot court proposition, based on page 8.
Yes.
Right. Mr. Victor, I shall be conducting a cross-examination. I hope I'm aptly audible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Is it not true that you were one of the 2 members who planned the entire operation against the entire compound of the Holy Cross School?
Yes, but I would like to specify that this planning pertained to just the technicalities of the drone itself. The plan was done with Mr. Jack Ryder, who handled the military ammunition and arms part of it, while I only handled the input of the data for the drones.
Okay. But you were a part of the 2 people who planned the operation, you and Jack Ryder, correct?
Yes.
In your technical capacity.
In subordination to Jack Ryder, yes.
Okay. Were you not informed about the fact that it was a sensitive zone and school children might be present there?
We were, but since I am under the authority of Jack Ryder, I was not in a position to oppose his decision or his stance when it came to the drone attack.
Are you saying that it wasn't a free vote given to you in the meeting?
It was a free vote, but at the end of the day, even if I had dissented, sorry?
But you're saying that you were subordinate to him and you only accepted what he was saying. So it wasn't a free vote.
So it was a free vote to the extent that, no, actually, in all honesty, yeah, I accept that it wasn't a free vote because we were subordinate to Jack Ryder. And whatever dissent had come through, Jack Ryder quashed all of it because he is the military individual who's in charge of the 2 officers who dissented in the first place.
I agree. So tell me, what is the military title that you hold that you were following command to the very order of Jack Ryder?
It's not a military title, but we
you
are.
Didn't have a free vote and you agreed to him because you only listened to him.
We are under the command of Jack Ryder. That is our.
But you don't have a military title.
Sorry?
But you don't have a military title. So I think it's practice that you listen to Jack Ryder, correct?
At least in this present situation, it was, yes, since he is a part of the military and he is the commander, yes.
So your title in practice adheres only to the first commander of the army, correct?
No, it adheres to anyone in the military because at the end of the day, we as Project Hawk are subordinate to the military.
I understand. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. Is it not true that you were trained by Dr. Alexander in United States of America? You were part of the training team?
Yes, I was.
Were you the captain of that team?
Yes.
All right. You were taught in international humanitarian law. Is that correct?
Yes.
So don't you understand that once it was told, it was talked about that it is a protective zone, it is a sensitive zone, and children might be there. Under international humanitarian law, pursuant to additional protocol 2, if there is a possibility that civilians would be there, an attack cannot be done.
Okay, I have 2 responses to that. First, Jack Ryder had explicitly told us that this zone had been cleared out. He had told us that there is no way there could be civilian harm that could have been caused, which is why I launched the attack in the first place. And secondly, when the information was conveyed back to us regarding there being civilians, I had already launched it and left the premises.
Okay. You have launched and left the premises. Did you say, is that correct?
Yes.
Your Excellencies, I would request you to please turn to the testimony of prosecution witness 2. Your Excellencies, it is on page 18 of the moot court proposition. Your Excellencies, the second paragraph, are you with me? Are your Excellencies with me?
Yes, page 18.
Page 18 of the moot court compromise, Your Excellencies.
Yes.
Your Excellencies, it is an established fact on record. By 1:20 p.m., our drones were circling around the school and the built-in set of cameras reading a large and dynamic movement within its premises. Within a few seconds, the 7 interconnected drones were able to throw us footage of children on the campus along with other Targaryens. Your Excellencies, at 1:35.
Objection, Your Honors. The prosecution is misleading the bench. It is not an established fact, and testimonies are not to be recognized as established facts.
Your Excellencies, it was never rebutted or objected by the prosecution when by the defense counsel when the Commander Rang Marutu gave this testimony. Moreover, Your Excellencies, they agreed to the fact that he was the person who launched the attack. The attack was launched at 1:35 p.m. when accused locked the image in the mainframe.
All right, what's your question to the witness?
The witness just stated, Your Excellencies, that she left the premises once the attack was launched before seeing that children were there. So she could not do anything. Your Excellencies, it is pointed out that the children were seen at 1:20. Attack was launched at 1:35. It is a violation of the solemn oath which was undertaken by the witness, Your Excellencies. That point needs to be noted.
No, it's just your prosecution case. You'll have to prove your case beyond doubt.
Indeed, Your Excellency, I was just making the bench note that point, that there is a contradiction right here.
All right.
Proceeding. Mr. Victor, you talked about that you were unqualified. Is that correct in that particular day? But you also testified to the effect that you were trained by Dr. Alexander. How were you unqualified then?
I was relatively unqualified because objectively I wasn't in a position to stop the attack.
But weren't you the programmer?
I programmed it. I input details regarding it. But as far as locking the targets is concerned, loading of ammunition is concerned, that was all handled by the military.
Are you familiar with the functioning of the drones?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Were you not informed about the you were not briefed about the topographical, like the whole topography of the zone that the drones would be attacked, attacking?
I was. However, this depiction of the topography, more than topography, the zone was described to me by Jack Ryder to be clear and only having a militia leader, which means I necessarily thought this attack was a war on terrorism as opposed to something that could affect civilians.
All right. 2 questions. Number 1, if the topography part was discredited, how could you program the drones to approach that particular topographical location when they function on IR blasters primarily? That is again submitted in the report, Annexure 4 by Jack Ryder. So if you were not aware about the topography of the location, how were you able to program it?
I said I was aware, but
that was discredited.
No, I said I was aware, but the circumstances surrounding the situation was what I was lied to about, is what I said.
Okay. So, all right. Anyway, coming to the second part of the question. You had said, if you, I think. Okay, is it not true that the drones cannot differentiate between combatants and civilians?
Yes.
It is true, right? So they must be programmed as to who are combatants and who are civilians, correct?
Yes.
So why did the drones interpret the situation as one of extreme hostilities and launch an all-out attack all over the civilians?
So that's where, again, my argument comes in, as I had stated before. As far as locking of the target is concerned, or any details pertaining to what the drones went ahead and did after they were launched, that was all done by the military. I had no say in it whatsoever.
So, okay. You're stating that it is an established fact that you locked in the first attack, which was against the TLF militia leader.
Yes.
Then you're stating that however the military, after that, there is actually no control. Objectively, according to your own testimony on record, that nobody can actually control it. Now you're stating that all the other targets were selected by the military operators.
No. I'm saying that as far as the locking and the configuration of the machine itself is concerned, obviously artificial intelligence needs to be configured. It was
Right.
configured on the basis of the military's demands.
So you configured it knowingly what the military demands.
I configured it hoping that the military wouldn't demand for such civilian losses to take place. I configured it in a manner that would attack individuals from the militia in that particular region, but the machine wasn't prepared to confront civilians and children who will be running in the stampede and might be mistaken for the militia to begin with.
Correct.
This was
You had a possibility knowledge that children would be there, but you just testified to the fact that the machine was never ready to deal with a situation where civilians would be present.
Yeah, it wasn't ready.
Knowing that, why did you consent in the meeting for the conduct of the attack, even in your technical capacity?
Because once again, I was under the command of Jack Ryder.
All right, so you do play a role under the military. It's fine. Thank
No,
you, Your Excellencies. That was all for cross-examination.
Yes.
Your Honors, the the victim counsel would not like to cross-examine the defense witness number 1.
Yes, proceed.
Thank you, Your Honors. At the sake of repetition, Your Honors, Mr. Yanukovych first served as a director of 3MZ, a private advanced arms and accessories manufacturing company, then as an external consultant to the Titanian Ministry of Defense, responsible for conceptualizing and weaponizing artificial intelligence and autonomous combat drones. And then finally, and during the present incident as well, served as a chief technical officer of Project Hawk at the Titanian Ministry of Defense. And so my question to you, Mr. Yanukovych, is that in light of these brilliant career promotions and as an arms industry veteran of over 20 years, do you still categorically believe that you have, quote, no understanding or training in the use of mechanics or guns, ammunition or firearms? A simple yes or no.
Yes.
So even after 20 years in the arms industry veteran, you still do not know how guns function?
I know how they function. I don't know how to use them.
Right, but you do know how they function, correct?
Yeah, I can get into
Absolutely.
the technicalities of operation. Yes.
Absolutely. As already acknowledged in your examination in chief, Mr. Yanukovych, Project Hawk falls under the ambit of the Titanian military, correct?
Yes.
And you were part of the same program, correct?
Yes.
As a CTO, correct?
Yes.
And so by inference, would it be a reasonable inference to say that you were part of the Titanian military hierarchy as CTO of Project Hawk? Project Hawk,
part of the hierarchy, yes, the hierarchy definitely, but not a part of the military because we don't engage in anything arms related.
Let me rephrase my question, Mr. Yanukovych. Project Hawk is a program under the Titanian military, and you served in that said program. Thus, would it be a reasonable inference to say that you're part of the Titanian military? It's fine if you don't want to answer, we'll move on. Acknowledged, Mr. Yanukovych. Could you please elaborate on your specific roles and tasks as Chief Technician of Project Hawk? Or was it related to software developing and administrative work?
Yes, it was administrative work and technical development of the drones and the technology itself.
Absolutely.
So my work just had to do with feeding in data, nothing more than just feeding in data. As far as loading arms and ammunitions are concerned, that goes back to the military and their technical individuals.
Mr. Yanukovych, in your own words, as the Chief Technical Officer of Project Hawk and as the one responsible for technical decisions, did you know about the prerequisite conditions that existed an all-out inferno attack mode of the drone? Were you aware that there was such a lethal capability of the drone? And you served as the Chief Technical Officer of Project Hawk. Were you aware of such lethal capabilities?
Yes.
A simple yes or no. You were aware. And Mr. Yanukovych, again, in your own words, as the Chief Technician of Project Hawk, were you aware of the 7-second buffer period given to suspend kill commands?
No.
You were not aware, but you were aware that let me rephrase my question, Your Honors, again. You were aware that there existed a lethal capability, specifically an all-out inferno attack mode, but you were not aware that there were 7 seconds to suspend the same precise attack mode, correct?
No, I was unaware, and the same can be inferred from the compromise as well.
Absolutely. And owing to the training provided to your group of technicians, do you believe, Mr. Yanukovych, that 7 seconds is enough to make split-second decisions?
I wasn't trained for this skill switch in the first place, which means I'm not in a position to answer that question.
But in your training provided by the US Naval Base, you were provided to make split-second decisions in 3 to 4 seconds, correct?
No.
You were not. Your Honor, the point to be noted, this is a contradiction to what has already been acknowledged by all 3 counsels, Your Honor. But let me move on. Mr. Yanukovych,
I think I heard your question wrong. What did you ask again?
Let's move on. It's not particularly relevant at this particular line of questioning, Mr. Yanukovych. Let's move on. Did you have any moral apprehensions on the conducting a military strike on such a sensitive zone?
Did I have any moral
apprehensions
regarding?
conducting the military strike on such a sensitive zone?
Yes, I did.
You did have moral apprehensions. And so why, if you had moral apprehensions, why did you still vote in favor of conducting the strike?
Because I was bound to follow the order of my commander.
Don't have to, but then voting is not royal and orders.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I cannot hear your question.
Voting, when somebody takes part in a voting, the question of following command doesn't arise. Voting is one's judgment.
Yes, Your Honor, that I'd like to respond to in a twofold manner. Firstly, the information provided to me regarding the situation was completely misconstrued. My senior commander, as opposed to two other officers who I wasn't reporting to, explicitly told me that the militia was at the school and we need to take care of that immediately. So you put yourself in my position and you tell me that if you hear that there is a militia that's capable of causing damage in a school premises next to civilian property, what would your immediate response be?
But the only point there is, if the machine, if the instruments that you are using cannot discriminate the people, you would then normally would say overwhelming presence of students is what you think is there, and only one or two or the other miscreants are there, and you would hesitate to really shoot them.
So we didn't know there were students present in the premises. What we did know is that this militia is capable of causing damage to at least property in that area. Jack Ryder did not inform us about the children being present. Jack Ryder did not inform us about the civilians being present or the school being in operation. So this misinformation is what essentially caused me to allow the launch of such drones in the first place, irrespective of my moral apprehensions. I was misinformed and I was framed into doing something that I wouldn't have done.
Mr. Yanakovich, paragraph 20 of the undisputed facts of the compromise specifically mentioned that you dismissed the fact that there were classes going to be conducted during that same operation. You personally dismissed that suggestion as "quote unquote" irrelevant, correct?
No, no.
Your Honor, Mr. Yanakovich, if I may.
Being a sensitive zone as irrelevant. I specifically said that the area being a sensitive zone is irrelevant because I did not believe that particular area to be a sensitive zone because of the information provided to me by Jack Ryder.
Your Honor, if I may refer back to paragraph 20 again and specifically quote, Your Honor, Mr. Yanakovich again agreed that it was a sensitive zone. On that notion of sensitive zone, it was specifically called a sensitive zone, quote unquote, because in light of the potential that some classes may have been organized in the premises, Your Honor. So classes and children are a reasonable inference to draw from that. But let's move on, Mr. Yanakovich. Coming back to apparent qualifications, why would you override internal military protocols by preemptively equipping lethal capabilities?
Because the military itself ordered me to do it.
Could you point to specifically which part of the undisputed facts state that specifically? Your Honor, it's important to note that written communications are the only given confines of a witness examination. This is completely conjecture on behalf of Mr. Yanakovich. But let me move on. Mr. Yanakovich, did you provide the kill authorization of the first militia target by uploading his picture, by locking in his picture in the mainframe server of the drone?
Yes.
And Mr. Yanakovich, already testified by your subordinate, Mr. Maruto, what exactly did you foresee was going to happen, given that there were children present in that same classroom? It's fine if you don't want to answer. We'll move on.
Children being present in the first place, which makes the entire question not relevant to my circumstances at the time.
Mr. Yanakovich, during the real-time footage that was showed at the military command, did you see presence of children? A simple yes or no.
Sorry, can you repeat yourself?
When the military operation was launched at 1:20 p.m., I believe, did you see real-time footage of children and adults at Holy Cross School?
Yes.
You did. So you knew children were present, correct?
Yes.
And only at 1:35, 15 minutes after you saw children present, only then did you authorize the kill command of the first militia target, correct?
Yes.
So you did know that there were children present and you still authorized the kill command of the first target, correct?
Yes, because I was ordered by Jack Ryder.
Absolutely. And so again, I'll repeat back my question, my first initial question. With all of this in mind, with the fact that there were children present, what exactly did you foresee was going to happen? It's fine if you don't want to answer.
I'm not answering this question.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes.
The defense counsel seeks permission to call defense witness 2 for chief examination.
Yes, please.
Witness, am I clearly audible and visible?
Yes, am I audible?
Yes.
Sure.
Your Honors, with your permission, may I ask the witness to take an oath?
Yes, proceed.
Witness, please repeat after me. I solemnly declare that
I solemnly declare that
I will speak the truth,
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Witness, could you please state your name, nationality, occupation, and age for the record?
Sure. My name is Sajal Singh. I am a national of India. My age is 46 years of age, and currently I'm working at Sambian University in India. Earlier, prior to this, I was working for 10 years in Project Hawk under the title military from the period of 2009 to 2019. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Singh, so you worked in Project Hawk for around, can you restate your
For
time
around
period?
10 years.
Around 10
Till
years.
2019. Yeah.
Okay, so you're familiar with the field of unmanned aerial vehicles?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Can you tell the court what are unmanned aerial vehicles?
Okay, so just to understand what unmanned aerial vehicles or UAV is, we need to understand that it's not a simple remote control plane with a gun. It's much more complex as it's made of machine learning syntax and AI systems. Now, to make an inference to where AI is being used around the world, a similar form of AI that's being used in UAVs, we take example of hate speech detectors that are there on social media platforms. Now, these applications have regularly failed because they can't be foolproof. Human beings design these applications and they can predict certain outcomes. And the remaining, when these applications are launched online or when this AI system is launched online, it will learn on the job, it will process real-time data, it will collate it, it will collect it, and then it will make future judgments on the basis of it, which requires minimum to no supervision by any other human interaction or a human individual to be there in these types of applications. Now, the same exact principles are applied in the UAV system also. It's the same form of AI system that's applied over here. It will learn on the job. The more kills it makes, the more better its judgment becomes. And that's how it will make its definite progress in the future also. Now, of course, we cannot blame Mr. Yankovic for making a device whose purpose is to be a soldier on its own and having its own mind. These machines in general only set up very unrealistic timelines for its human controller to take any action if something goes wrong, as happened in this scenario. These times are very unrealistic as these human controllers also have to follow a hierarchy. In this setup, or like let's talk about Project Hawk in general. In Project Hawk, the people in Project Hawk, the people such as me and Mr. Yankovic, who put in the codes, who make the machines, they have very little involvement in what is happening inside the political scenario or what is happening, what decisions are being made inside. Everything is hidden.
Sorry for interrupting, witness. Like you currently said, can you tell what degree of information you would get in any operation?
Okay, sure. So I'll explain it in this manner. So we are like a subsector of military. We're not the military itself. We are workers working on a contractual basis for the military in Project Hawk. Our only job is to come in, put in the data, type in the numbers, make the machines, and go off. And that's what Mr. Yankovic is also doing. So we do not get any technical information. We do not get any of the sensitive information that's given to the soldiers. We're at the bottom of the food chain. We just get commands from the higher ups and we just put in the codes to execute those commands. That's all our function.
Okay, so one last question. Did the members of Project Hawk take any orders from the army or did they have any say? Can you comment on that?
Yes, from the higher officials, Project Hawk did on a regular basis take commands from the army.
Okay. That's all from the examination in chief for defense witness 2. Your Honors.
Yes, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honors. Proceeding with the cross-examination. Good evening, Mr. Sajal Singh. I am the prosecutor in the case. I shall be conducting your cross-examination. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
You talked about that it was in your testimony that you have been developing a career at least 10 years in developing internal capabilities of Titan's army. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That was your portfolio under Project Hawk?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. You talked about UAVs. We understand that, but do you understand the difference between UAVs and autonomous drones?
Yes, I do.
Right. So can you comment on autonomous drones in any capacity?
I can comment on autonomous drones. They are basically minimal to no human interaction needed in autonomous drones. And in UAVs, there is certain control that is being given. There is a very little line in space that's been dividing these two aspects right now. So future comments won't be made. Yeah.
Okay, but you, if we compare the timeline, since there is a very thin line between human operation in terms of UAV and autonomous drones, you said that UAVs provide unrealistic timelines.
They do, yeah.
Would you say 7 seconds is unrealistic as well?
I'm not aware of the timelines that they have set. Yeah, 7 seconds it is, because the person who's actually running the machines, they're actually putting in the code, is not a military officer who is like ranked there to actually make the decision. He has to take a decision from the higher ups, and then only he can make the decision, or she can make the decision. So yeah, 7 seconds or like this amount of time is as good as giving with no supervision. It's almost autonomous. Yeah.
Yes. 7 seconds is in fact, but don't you think people owe a human duty towards others? Like, consider a situation where you were, say, operating the drone and you had 7 seconds and you saw your own people, your people of your own country being killed by the said drone. So would you wait for orders from the superiors, or would you execute the 7 second suspension then and there?
I mean, 7 seconds is a very little time, as stated by you. The time enough to get the data, what is happening, assess the situation, as well as even consider asking your higher ups. 7 seconds is not enough. No amount of time in that situation is enough under the pressure too. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
I'll completely agree. Anyway, you said that these 7 seconds are in fact not enough. Like, don't you think that weapons which only provide 7 seconds for human operators to make any difference to the programming, right, are inherently dangerous, who cannot really make a distinction between civilians and combatants?
These weapons are dangerous, and such weapons are being used all over the world for defense systems. And I mean, Osama was killed by the use of drones too.
Correct.
So it has been used all over the world, and it's a country's defense system in the end. The way the country uses it, the way it's on the military in the end. That's all I'll say.
Do you recall that you talked about Osama's assassination? Those UAVs were completely human controlled. They were not autonomous.
Yeah, that was a different time. It was just an example of how dangerous technology is being used everywhere around the world for a country's defense. Yeah.
Objection, Your Honor, on grounds of factual inaccuracy. The assassination of Osama bin Laden was specifically Operation Neptune Spear, which was a subset of the Navy, specifically dev crew. Commander soldiers specifically shot and killed, executed Osama bin Laden. There was absolutely no use of autonomous weapon drones in the assassination of Osama bin Laden.
There was the use of drone to check the aerial view of the whole area.
And those drones were human. That's what we were conversing about.
For reconnaissance, not for the assassination.
Yes,
it wasn't a direct. Yeah, it was just an example.
Anyway, like you talked about how it's inherently dangerous, and like, don't you think that it should, like, as you said, these weapons which are autonomous in nature are being used around the world for defense systems? Don't you think that they should not be used in areas which are more occupied and populated by civilians?
Indeed, they shouldn't be used in certain areas. A more careful analysis of a situation should have been conducted, definitely. But in the end, it's in the hand of the military and the higher commanders to make this decision, not in the hands of the people who actually make the machines and put in the codes.
Yeah, but since they are taught as to how the and how international humanitarian law works, so they do owe something to the community, because they are aware as to what the legal framework is set by the right. So don't you think they owe some sort of legal duty towards the ground people, or towards the victims?
Then again, I'm not aware of this aspect. In my tenure, I was never asked to make any such calls like that. I was asked just to put in the codes. I do not know the situation since I left in 2019. So I can't comment on this. Yeah.
I understand. Just one final question. The drones which are produced in Titan under Project Hawk, or which are used in Titan, can they make a distinction between civilians and combatants?
So the basis of this drone technology, it has to be quite specific. It has to be very accurate in its senses, but it also learns on the basis of its per killings. So the more killings it makes, the more its AI gets better. As I told you earlier, it learns on the job. So it should make a distinction, but when there's commotion, when there is a lot of things can go wrong in an AI system, as I stated earlier. No AI is perfect right now.
Okay, I understand that. Are you aware as to how they were training these drones with respect to, to perfect the AI?
No, I'm not. I can't disclose that over here.
All right, let me. Paragraph 16 of the moot court proposition, Your Excellencies, page 7, right above paragraph 17. The line reads, drones developed under Project Hawk were engaged in indiscriminate counteroffensive against identified leaders of the TLF. Minute data obtained from these extrajudicial assassinations was used by the technical team behind Project Hawk to train and feed the algorithms used in Titan's drone technology to improve their efficiency and accuracy.
Yes, that's what I stated earlier too. It learns on the job. It takes more killings and yeah, exactly.
Since you have been a part of Project Hawk and it has been a military, do they make a distinction between rebels and terrorists?
They do have to make a distinction. It is there in the database. It should be there, but in certain scenarios, AI does not work perfectly. Yeah. Then again,
so there is a distinction between rebels and terrorists, or by the Project Hawk. Yeah, in the database.
They feed in a particular target, as happened in this particular scenario. Yeah. They do make a distinction.
But the drones themselves cannot make any distinction between civilians or combatants.
Once it's in that auto-generated mode, no, I don't think so. It's not perfected yet.
Okay. One final question. Since you are here with, since you teach jurisprudence and ethics with related to automated weapons, don't you think there is a doctrine of rationality which should be applied before these drones are unleashed in the sky against a civilian populated area? The action should at least be rational to what is going on.
The rationality of the situation has to be adjudged by the military who is actually commanding. In the end, we are like any other civilians, including Victor. He is any other civilian working as an employee for Project Hawk as on a contract basis, as we know it, as I stated earlier. So if anyone has to be asked, it should be the military itself.
Can you please tell me that why is there a notion in Titan that civilians follow military commands to the very core and order?
I cannot really comment on that statement. It's the geopolitical situation, which I don't have any idea about.
But are civilians supposed to comply with military commands whenever they are given? Like, are civilians any obligation to comply with military commands?
In the end, we were working on a service basis, in a contract basis. We had to comply with what our organizers and what our superiors stated. And they were our superiors that time. They were giving us orders and we were just complying with it.
Even if the orders were manifestly unlawful?
I mean, in my tenure, I never had any of those orders. So,
but if the orders were supposed to be manifestly unlawful, would you have complied?
Manifestly unlawful orders, I cannot comment on that. It depends upon what the military considers unlawful, since they are the states.
No, in the sense that in your ethics and in your morality, if an order is manifestly on the face of it unlawful and immoral in nature, would you comply with it?
I haven't yet, and I wouldn't. Yeah.
Thank you. That was all for cross-examination.
Yes, please.
Your Honor, the victim counsel would now like to begin the cross-examination of defense witness 2.
Yes.
Mr. Singh, you state that you were, quote, ignorant of the very existence of the conflict between the Titanian government and the Targaryens. Do you still believe such a statement to be true?
Indeed, about what's the internal disturbances to the very core, yeah, I am unaware. What was happening on the base of it, everyone was aware in the country.
Absolutely. So you were aware of the overarching conflict existence, correct? Overarching existence.
Yeah, the overarching ones. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Singh, while you worked at Project Hawk, could you please highlight what your role specifically entailed as a technician, right?
Indeed, I was developing the internal capabilities of the Titan Army in Project Hawk. One of the technicians, I was working on the AI systems and the machine learning syntax algorithms. My major work involved in that.
Mr. Singh, in your own words, as you just stated, as a software developer at Project Hawk, were you aware of the activation of a very lethal capability, specifically an all-out inferno attack mode of the drones? Were you aware of that?
As I left in 2019, I wasn't aware of any such functions till then. I was just given the job along with my team to type in the codes. We weren't given.
So according to your statement, this specific attack mode was only programmed in after you left, correct?
I have no idea who and when was it programmed. I'm sorry, I can't answer.
You just previously stated that it was not present until 2019. Therefore, by inference, it is only after 2019 it was programmed, correct? Let me move on.
Yeah, it was made for the country's
overruled. Question overruled. Mr. Counsel, you will have to take that inference to your advantage.
Absolutely, Your Honor. In your own words again, Mr. Singh, as a software developer of Project Hawk, were you aware of the existence of the 7-second buffer period? given to suspend such kill commands?
No, I wasn't aware of any such buffer periods that was given.
And so, Mr. Singh, again, as the immediate subordinate of Mr. Yankovic, do you believe that Mr. Yankovic, who was the head of the entire program, was he aware of these two technical aspects of his own program?
I'm not aware, since at least during my tenure, it wasn't introduced. And after that, I was in no way in contact with Professor Yankovic. So I have no idea what is happening.
Absolutely. Mr. Singh, you state that, quote, even if supervision is present, such supervision is often post facto. Mr. Singh, my question to you is this. Are you aware of the myriad of persuasive sources on the manufacturing and technical aspects of lethal autonomous weapon systems, given that you're a professor of artificial intelligence on various and you're an extremely reputed scholar of the same? Are you aware of these sources?
Of sources of what? Can you repeat that?
Specifically, the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, a treaty that Titan has ratified.
Yes, indeed.
Specifically, Mr. Singh, the specific clause regarding the prohibition of weapons which cause superfluous injury and unnecessary harm. Are you aware of that particular clause?
Not in particular. Can you brush through my memory?
Specifically, that provision of certain conventional weapons regarding the manufacturing of new weapons, Your Honor, regarding the technical advancements which could happen in the future, there is a clause specifically mentioned which prohibits weapons which cause superfluous injury and unnecessary harm. My question to you, Mr. Singh, is in light of your experience, I believe you worked with the Project Talk for the past 7 years. Do you believe the program that you worked for abided by these principles? A simple yes or no. Or if you refuse to answer, it's completely fine. We'll move on.
Yes, the program I worked on, it did abide on these principles.
It did abide by the prohibition that
in the end, what I was doing was, we all were doing was make programs that was for our country's defense system. We didn't know how it was being used. We were just making programs and making machines. That's all.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mr. Singh. You cite, last line of questioning, Your Honors, Mr. Singh, you cite an example stating that, quote, putting Victor on trial is equivalent to putting the mechanic who repairs your car on trial for a motor accident done by the owner of the car. Mr. Singh, correct me if I'm mistaken, but the owner in this particular example of yours refers to the commander of the military operation, correct? The one who made the decision?
Indeed,
correct?
Yeah. Indeed, yeah.
And so, Mr. Singh, were you present at the military command during the 26th July incident?
No, I wasn't.
You were not. Mr. Singh, in a hypothetical, in a universe far, far away from ours here, if Mr. Victor, in the hypothetical scenario that if Mr. Victor effectively served as a commander during the incident, should he be held liable within your own analogy, your own framework, Mr. Singh?
I mean, I can't work on these hypotheticals. I just know the fact, I just know what I know right now. What I was then in 2019.
Counsel, how can he answer this?
Mr. Singh, Your Honors, Mr. Singh himself provided a hypothetical. I'm just extending the same hypothetical, Your Honor. If I may just rephrase again.
Yes.
Mr. Singh, you cited example, one second, Your Honors, let me just cite specifically which case, Your Honors, page number 23, Your Honor, page number 23, second paragraph, last sentence, Your Honor.
Yes.
Putting Victor on trial is equivalent to putting the mechanic who repairs your car on trial for a motor accident done by the owner of the car. That is a specific quote from his written communication, Your Honor. The only question that I'm asking, Mr. Singh, is given your very specific example, in the hypothetical that if Mr. Victor did serve as the owner of the car, should he be held liable? A simple yes or no.
In my opinion, the person who gives the orders, the person who is there in the hierarchy, higher up, who decides the attack, should be held responsible. I do not know who it is. So I just say the person, whoever gave these orders, who began with the plan, should be held executed.
So the owner of the car should be held liable, correct?
Yes, should be held
Absolutely.
liable.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Yes.
The counsel seeks permission to begin with closing statements.
Yes, closing statement.
Indeed, Your Excellencies, the procedure mandates that post the cross-examination by victims.
Yes, please.
Your Excellencies, in the present case, it was established by the prosecution that they shall prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was indeed knowledge and intention on part of Mr. Victor Yanukovych, with which he conducted the said war crime of murder of the civilians as well as the children, 270 children and close to 100 civilians, Your Excellencies. Moreover, Your Excellencies, it was promised, it was stated that a joint criminal enterprise pursuant to Article 25, 3A shall be also proved beyond a reasonable doubt on part of Mr. Viktor Yanukovych, Your Excellencies. With respect to the first, I would request you to please move to Article 30 of the Rome Statute. Your Excellency, subclause 3 of the Article 30 states, for the purpose of this article, knowledge means awareness that a circumstance exists or a consequence will occur in the ordinary course of events. With that established, Your Excellencies, I would like to first take you to Annexure 5 of the Moot Court Proposition, page 36. Are Your Excellencies with me?
Yes.
Your Excellency, the first message which was sent by Viktor Yanukovych to his sister was 11:47 a.m. It's going to be a long day for me. Jack has gone nuts. The guy wants to blow up an entire school. It was the contention of the prosecution altogether that the military objective was only aimed at the TLF militia members. Now let's consider the same to be an exaggeration, even though if it was. Your Excellencies, I would like to point out that the militia members were only present at a part of the compound, the boarding house, which has been also testified by the victim, not in the entire school. Moreover, Your Excellencies, I shall take you to paragraph 21 of the Moot Court Proposition. Paragraph 21 of the Moot Court Proposition states that the accused and Mr. Jack Ryder thereafter planned an entire operation to target members of TLF militia. However, the complete operation was organized in the premises, in the complete compound of the Holy Cross School. That is present in the beginning of the paragraph itself. The meeting of the said individuals by a thin majority of 4:2 voted to conduct a strike covering the entire compound of the Holy Cross School. Your Excellencies, in the present case, it is also agreed by the accused himself that he was a part of the deployment team. Your Excellencies, I would like to point out that deployment of weapons also attracts conviction under Article 8 of war crimes under the Rome Statute. This was also pointed out in the Bosco Natakanda case, prosecutor versus Bosco Natakanda. The final hearing took place in 2021 itself, Your Excellencies, but the final hearing was on reparations. Anyway, moreover, Your Excellencies, I would like to point out that there was a common intention on part of both Jack Ryder and the accused from the very beginning. Your Excellencies, before I come to that, I shall point out the facts which were established by way of testimonies of the various witnesses. Your Excellencies, the prosecution witness 1, and I shall also use the ground report which has been which was stated in the testimonies. If I shall take you to page 32 of the Moot Court Compromise. Your Excellencies, page 32, the last paragraph says that lastly, the investigation has revealed that by virtue of holding a private position in 3MZ and the same time holding a public trust position of the chief architect of Project Hawk, Mr. Viktor Yanukovych exercised enormous control over the active use of these advanced weapons technology systems against the Targaryen community. Your Excellencies, by this, it is established that the chief technician had a lot of control as to when the deployment of the drones are to be made in the military operations. Now, Your Excellencies, I shall prove that he also had control over the said weapons. Your Excellencies, both the expert witnesses pointed out as to the level of human control which is present in the utilization of the said weapons. Moreover, Your Excellencies, it is present in the excerpt of the report submitted by Jack Ryder. Your Excellencies, Annexure 4, page 35 of the Moot Court Proposition. Are Your Excellencies with me?
Yes.
Your Excellencies, the paragraph B starts in the 4th line. The lithium-based battery which sends electrons throughout the silicon internals of our drones and allows to perform actions otherwise impossible for our soldiers, all while being under our control. Your Excellencies, this is submitted by the military commander Jack Ryder himself, and he also talks about how his subordinates also agree to the same and congratulates the country on achieving such high weaponry technologies. Now, Your Excellencies, I shall point out to the intricacies which the defense counsel would raise. They would talk about how the TLF, these operations were being conducted in a manner to counter terrorism. Your Excellencies, the TLF is a rebel force. I'm not here to defend the rebel forces, but I'd like to point out that whenever a counter-terrorist operation is taking place, there is always a doctrine of proportionality and doctrine of rationality looked at together. Your Excellencies, pursuant to the doctrine of rationality, there is a 6-factor test which was laid down, which has been laid down by a
Learned Counsel. Sorry for stopping you, but before going into the doctrine of proportionality, can you satisfy us that whether there was any war crime at all? Why you are terming it that it is war crime?
Your Excellencies, as I just pointed out to the bench, that there was intention as well as knowledge on part of the accused. There was an existence of non-international armed conflict, as the accused himself stated that he was there to assassinate the leader of the TLF militia. A hierarchy existed on part of the Targaryen Liberation Force. Your Excellencies, it was stated by expert witnesses as well as the investigating officer that there used to be constant clashes between the Targaryen Liberation Force and the government. A systematic pattern can be seen. Therefore, a non-international armed conflict existed. The accused was aware about it. That's why he was launching operations. Furthermore, Your Excellencies, the accused it was stated by the expert witnesses that the consequence can be foreseen. Therefore, knowledge prong can be satisfied because he's the one who's programming the tool. Moreover, Your Excellencies, it was pointed out by his messages that Jack Ryder and him together were planning an attack against the entire compound of the school. He said the Jack wants to blow up an entire school, but he did not contradict that. He was in favor of that. He voted in favor of it and planned an entire operation against the school. Moreover, it was established by way of PW2 and admission by way of defense witness 1, the accused himself, that the drones at 1:20 p.m. showed the image of the school. There were children seen. But at 1:35, the image of the first militia leader was locked in. After confirmed visuals of children being present, in complete violation of Additional Protocol 2 of the Geneva Conventions, the accused launched the attack. Hence, war crime of murder is satisfied, Your Excellencies. Now I'd like to point out that there was a joint criminal enterprise as well. So this is an individual criminal liability under Article 25(3)(a). Your Excellencies, as was pointed out, there was a common object on part of both the parties, which was Jack Ryder.
Counsel, does the Rome Statute say anything about joint criminal enterprise, or does it say about co-perpetratorship?
Your Excellencies, it does talk about co-perpetration. I take the theory of joint criminal enterprise or from the Klaus Roxen theory of organization or shaft when I was trying to compare the same.
But can you argue about joint criminal enterprise before ICC, since Rome Statute does not recognize it?
Your Excellency, it does not recognize explicitly a joint criminal enterprise, but it does talk about co-perpetration. Furthermore, Your Excellencies, pursuant to Article 21 of the Rome Statute, applicable law, these are customary practices practiced in various states. Therefore, the Rome Statute can make an inference and adopt the same as well. It is totally up to the bench, Your Excellencies.
Yes, but regarding joint criminal enterprise, ICC in a number of cases has put its reservation. They said that, and that's why they have changed it to co-perpetratorship.
Indeed.
So I would suggest you to submit arguments on that line as well.
Indeed. Your Excellencies, I'd like to then move on to the ICTY decision in the case of Milorad Chronojelak. Forgive me for my pronunciation. Your Excellencies, the ICTY bench in that particular case talked about co-perpetration. Your Excellencies, they talked about a 3-pronged test, which was plurality of persons. Second was existence of a common plan, design, or purpose, which amounts to or involves commission of a crime present under the statute. Lastly, participation of the accused in the common design or perpetration of the act. Now, Your Excellencies, I would request an extension of 2 minutes to conclude my arguments.
Yes, please proceed.
Now, Your Excellencies, I would draw a distinction along with the Tadich case, situation number 2. Your Excellencies, in the Tadich case, they talked about how perpetration can exist. Now, the second situation they talk about is the situation similar to concentration camps, as a lot of reservations were raised during the trial that the accused does not possess a military title. Now, Your Excellencies, in a concentration camp situation, an administrative title or a normal involvement also satisfies the situation. Moreover, Your Excellencies, in the Rochling case, the Nuremberg trials developed a jurisprudence with regard to the fact that military title is not essential. Hermann Reuchling was convicted of crimes of aggression as well as war crimes, but he did not possess any government or military title. He was an industry leader in the for iron and steel under the Reich, Your Excellencies. Therefore, Your Excellencies, even though the accused might not possess a military title, he was still, as agreed by witnesses, a superior for them in the hierarchy. Moreover, Your Excellencies, a common object has been established, knowledge was established, awareness was established, and indeed there were violations of international humanitarian law. Hence, it is the prayer of the prosecution to please kindly hold the accused guilty of war crime of murder under Article 8C21 of the Rome Statute, Your Excellencies. With that, prosecution concludes the closing statement. Much obliged.
Yes. Yes, who's commencing next? Defense or
victim counsel would not like to commence that closing statement, Your Honors.
Yes, victim.
Honorable judges of the trial chamber, war and armed conflicts, although inherently cruel and unjust, categorically aligns itself with three fundamental principles as outlined in Jus in Bello: the principles of distinction, proportionality, and responsibility. Your Honors, what we have here today is one of the most horrific acts ever committed by state-sanctioned military in recent history. The same military which swore an oath to protect and safeguard the rights and interests of these same Titanians whom they murdered in cold blood. Likewise, this indictment against Mr. Yanukovych not only serves as a conviction and enforcement of international law, but also as a hallmark of justice for the victims and Titanians alike, and acknowledging their brutal history in the hopes of charting a better course for their future. The Victims' Counsel, in due course of its submissions, proved beyond reasonable doubt that the accused, Mr. Yanukovych, is liable for the war crime of murder under Article 8 of the Rome Statute, and that the victims and their families be entitled for compensation for the harms caused by such a crime. Prior to my substantive lines of argument, Your Honor, I would like to first answer your line of questioning regarding the concept of reparations and whether it would truly be enough. Your Honors, it is to be noted that if persons in positions of authority did not abuse that authority to commit crimes, the entire concept of criminal justice would not even be required. But as we learn time and again, we learn that these actions do take place, like the one in this present case. It is thus imperative that this esteemed court take note of the revolutionary process of victims' reparations as provided under Article 75 of the Rome Statute. Specifically, Your Honors, there are two types of reparations: individual reparations and collective reparations. Specifically referring to the appeals judgment of the order of reparations for case of Katanga in 2018. Collective reparations, and I'm quoting Your Honor, was designed to benefit identified victims in the form of housing assistance, education assistance, income-generating activities, and more importantly, psychological rehabilitation, Your Honors. Specifically, Your Honors, additionally, there are largely, the second distinction, Your Honors, is that there is a substantial difference between automated weapons and autonomous weapons. Additionally, autonomous weapons are of particularly three types: in-the-loop systems, on-the-loop systems, and out-of-the-loop systems, as already corroborated by prosecution witness 2 and victim witness 1. All of these autonomous weapons, specifically the projectile drones, had a certain degree of human intervention and thus were on-the-loop systems. Thus, the fact that human intervention existed means that there was supervision of the entire operation of the military operation, Your Honors. Specifically, Your Honors, regarding the substantive elements of war crime of murder under Article 8, Your Honor, I would like to focus on two facets, specifically under Article 30 of intent and knowledge. First, the accused intended to engage in such conduct. This is substantiated by the fact that the accused served as the chief technician of Project Hawk and that he was given absolute control over the military offensive against the Targaryens. Furthermore, not only did the accused deem concerns about the ethical standards of such an operation as, quote, irrelevant, he subsequently went on to plan out the entire operation on Holy Cross School with Mr. Ryder. Thus, the Whaler submits that there existed a degree of, quote, voluntariness expressed by Mr. Yanukovych in his intentions to engage in such conduct. The same has been corroborated by prosecutor witness 1 and 2 and victim witness 1. Second, Your Honor, the Whaler contends that the knowledge requirement is also fulfilled. Of particular relevance is the cases of Dodgevich and Dilyamana, which states that there does not, quote, exist a requirement of premeditation as one of the elements of war crime of murder. Furthermore, the Katanga judgment standardized the principle of dolus eventualis to a degree of virtual certainty, satisfying the necessary mental element. The same has been upheld in the cases of Banta and Jerbo, Glastic, Muchik et al., and the Tajik appeals. It is thus submitted that it is absolutely farcical to imagine.
Learned Counsel, again,
whether ICC recognizes dolus eventualis.
Your Honor, there are only 3 cases which talks about dolus eventualis, Your Honor: Gombo, Lubanga, and Katanga. Your Honor, specifically, Lubanga and Katanga both failed to further elaborate on the premises of dolus eventualis. So the only one that we're left with is a case of Gombo, Your Honor. In the case of Gombo, it is specifically mentioned, Your Honor, that the second degree of dolus directus could perhaps be echoed as virtual certainty, which is the specific definition of dolus eventualis, Your Honor. Specifically, the concept of recklessness. Your Honor, if I may substantiate that by a particular judgment, Your Honor.
Okay, please proceed.
Absolutely. It is thus. So the mere reasonable idea of forcibility is enough to satisfy the necessary mental element. It is submitted, Your Honor. It is absolutely farcical to imagine that a veteran of the arms industry for over 20 years, one who has been trained and also conceptualized the entire drone program for Titan, could not have anticipated the consequences of authorizing the deployment of autonomous drones in such a sensitive region. Therefore, the Vera submits that not only was the accused made aware of the inherent dangers of such a sensitive military operation, he voluntarily dismissed it as irrelevant, violated internal military protocols, and thus voluntarily took on the associated risk along with it. The same has been corroborated by prosecutor witness 1 and 2 and victim witness 1. Your Honor, as an alternate argument, the Wheeler submits that the defense under Article 3 cannot be availed by the accused, specifically the defense of respondent superior or superior orders. The prosecution, it is imperative to note, Your Honor, that the defense, the doctrine of respondent superior or military necessity has never ever been considered as a valid absolute defense to a wartime in any of the previous ICC tribunals, from all the way back to the Nuremberg trials, to the Far East in the Tokyo tribunal, to the ICTY, to the ICTR. There has never been a successful defense of respondent superior. Furthermore, the order to conduct such a strike was manifestly unlawful, and such a status was also acknowledged by the accused in his text messages to his sister. Your Honor, moving on. The VLR submits that the accused, Mr. Viktor Yanukovych, is individually criminally liable for war crime conducted under command responsibility, specifically Article 28B3 along with Article 25(3)B. Specifically, Your Honor, at this juncture, it is imperative to take note of the Martins clause present in the Rome Statute, along with its intended interpretation as outlined in the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, which allows this esteemed court to take into account 2 principles. Number 1, the dictates of public conscience, and number 2, the principles of humanity, both of which principles were emphatically disproven by the acts ordered by the accused. Your Honor, lastly, Your Honor, the Wheeler submits that the victims have suffered great harm due to the commission of such a grievous crime and thus requires appropriate reparations. In this regard, the Wheeler submits that there is little doubt that the children, men and women, the vast majority of them were civilians and having no part in the conflict, who were indiscriminately killed by autonomous combat drones, would qualify as victims as defined by both the UN Declaration.
Ramchandra. No, I was persuaded by your argument about the total indiscriminate nature and illegality because of the vast disproportionality that these weapons, drones, inherently carried. That much I understand. But the same thing goes for the nuclear weapons. This goes with all chemical weapons. This goes with many others. And in the circumstances, what we are looking for is a distinction for the moment, having agreed with that argument. Is the person who is in charge right now is a human being, or is it an artificial machine that is working? To what extent intent can be subscribed or can be ascribed to a person who has no command, no control, no authority to put the trigger. So therefore, that's where the intention problem will come in.
Absolutely, Your Honor. Let me answer that question in 2 facets, Your Honor. The element of one of the most important elements of command responsibility is the superior subordinate relationship, Your Honor. At this point, it's imperative to note how human on-the-loop systems actually work. Your Honor, there is a particular range determined by the programmers prior to the operation as well. And we have already acknowledged that Mr. Yanukovych was the chief technical officer required for the entire programming and the entire development of the drones, Your Honor. So specifically, that the range has already been provided. However, Your Honor, the range is only activated once the initial go-ahead is given by Mr. Yanukovych, which is the accused here. And this has also been corroborated, Your Honor, by the victim, by the accused himself, that he did indeed confirmed the first attack against the first militia leader, Your Honor. So that was the go-ahead. That was the specific intent, the specific knowledge of committing that specific extrajudicial killing of the first militia leader, Your Honor. So by that, you can infer that the subsequent actions, specifically the concept of forcibility as upheld in the case of Muchik et al., satisfy the necessary mental element, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I continue with my closing statement?
Please.
Absolutely, Your Honor. So it is absolutely a given that the children, men and women who were civilians would qualify to be considered as victims, as defined by both the UN Declaration defining the status of victims and the rules of this court, specifically Rule 85. Thus, Your Honor, the VLR submits that the victims in this present case are entitled to reparations in accordance with Article 75 of the Rome Statute. Furthermore, if the esteemed court is of the opinion that the defendant cannot compensate such a large number of victims in the present case, the VLR also submits that the trust fund, specifically outlined under Article 79, can be used to compensate the victims and their families for the enormous harms that they have endured. With these submissions, Your Honor, the VLR would now like to rest this case and proceed with their prayers. Wherefore, in the light of the issues raised, arguments on merits, evidences supplied, and the authorities relied on, it is humbly prayed that number one, Mr. Yanukovych did commit the act of war crime of murder under Article 82C of the Rome Statute. Number two, Mr. Yanukovych is individually criminally responsible for the acts ordered by him as a person effectively acting as a military commander, as an NCO, which is specifically mentioned under Article 28 during the incident under Article 25(3)(b) of the Rome Statute. And number three, Your Honors, that Mr. Yanukovych is individually criminally responsible and be convicted for the failure of not taking all necessary precautions and reasonable measures within his powers to prevent such an act, specifically under Article 28(b)(3) of the Rome Statute. And finally, Your Honors, that the victims be compensated for the enormous harms that they've caused by such a grievous crime. These are the submissions of the victims' legal representative. Thank you, Your Honors. It has been an absolute privilege to argue in front of the esteemed court. Thank you.
Yes.
Your Honors, may the defense proceed with the closing statement?
Yes, please.
Much obliged, Your Honors. The defense and Mr. Viktor Yanukovych empathize with the victims who have suffered harm due to the actions of a hypocritical government. The prosecution spoke about actions based on assumptions. I shall speak on facts. The office of the prosecutor is burdened with providing sufficient evidence to establish substantial grounds to believe that the accused committed the alleged crimes as envisaged under Article 61, paragraph 7 of the Rome Statute. The pre-trial chamber in Lubanga held that the provided evidence must be compelling beyond mere theory or suspicion and provide concrete and tangible proof. In the present case, the prosecution has failed to establish the guilt of the accused through concrete evidence beyond reasonable doubt, establishing that Mr. Viktor Yanukovych is innocent. Your Honors, the prosecution have been successful, not in establishing the guilt of the accused, but in fabricating a story based on a perfunctory investigation. Your Honor, the office of the prosecutor does not itself empathize with the situation and calls on the court to do the same. When the neighboring state of Galador referred to the office of the prosecutor the situation in Titan, the prosecutor announced that the attacks on Holy Cross School, which killed 370 civilians, failed to pass the legal standards and fell beyond the threshold of sufficient gravity to warrant action on behalf of the court. Now, the office of the prosecutor stands in front of this court, concocting a false case towards Mr. Viktor Yanukovych and contradicting their own investigation. Your Honors, the office of the prosecutor has relied on the chat messages between Ms. Jean Yanukovych and Mr. Viktor Yanukovych, which the defense counsel submit that are inadmissible in this court under Article 69, paragraph 7 of the Rome Statute, and even previously in the case of Jean-Pierre Bemba Gombo et al., such private messages were held to be inadmissible. Your Honors, they have very conveniently misled Mr. Viktor Yanukovych in order to substantiate their baseless claims. They've repeatedly alleged the existence of a 7-second buffer time for suspension of the kill command and of an internal military protocol. However, Your Honors, they've failed to provide concrete evidence for the same, as the same cannot be found anywhere in the official compromise. The prosecution intended to place criminal liability on Mr. Viktor Yanukovych on the contention that one should not wait for orders to save civilians, contradicting their own witnesses' testimony, which in return puts forth the question, Your Honors, why did not prosecutor witness 2, Mr. Roland Maruto, abort the mission? And why hasn't criminal liability placed on him, considering the same statement? The accused is being tried for individual criminal responsibility for actions committed by the drones used in Project Hawk against civilians killed in the Holy Cross School on July 26, 2020. It is essential to bring to the notice of this court the real facts as to the situation on July 26th. Your Honors, the Office of the Prosecutor have contended that the accused must not be provided a defense under Article 31 and 33 of the Rome Statute. However, Your Honors, the prosecution are themselves not aware of the fact that when there is no crime committed by Mr. Viktor Yanukovych, why would the accused opt for defenses under the Article 31 and Article 36? The Office of the Prosecutor have contended that Mr. Viktor Yanukovych is also liable under the JCE doctrine. However, Your Honors, they fail to understand the law. And as rightly pointed by Your Honors, the JCE doctrine was rejected by this court in Prosecutor versus Al-Bashir on March 4, 2009. Your Honors, it has been alleged that a non-international armed conflict was present in Titan during the events of July 26th. However, this is a false notion established by the prosecution. The conflict
For the counsel, what is your argument regarding co-perpetratorship? The prosecution,
Indeed, Your Honors.
Whether he is liable under co-perpetratorship.
No, Your Honors, Mr. Viktor Yanukovych is not liable under co-perpetration. And if I may proceed, I'll clear the same thing in the course of my closing statements. Your Honors, the conflict between OFC and TLF does not reach the threshold of a NIAC, but amounts to OFC's war on terrorism against TLF, with TLF creating terror among the citizens of Titan. Ergo, the jurisdiction of Article 8, Paragraph 2, Clause C of the Rome Statute and Article 8, Paragraph 2, Clause E of the Rome Statute cannot efficiently cover the conflict between OFC and TLF. The Tardich trial chamber had held that criterions of intensity and sufficient degree of organization are used solely for the purpose of distinguishing, as a minimum, an armed conflict from banditry, short-lived and unorganized insurrections, or terrorist activities which are not subject to international humanitarian law. Your Honors, even in the absence of a strict definition of terrorism under international law, certain international regulations define terrorism as an involvement of an act performed to intimidate civilian population or an act of compelling the government to do or abstain from the performance of any act. Recent law proposals have placed the threshold of destabilizing the government, intimidation of population with attacks upon a person's life which may cause death, and extensive destruction to a government. Your Honors, TLF's actions share a common intent, that is destabilizing the OFC government. The TLF was very quick to denounce the elections as arbitrary and unfair when OFC won the federal elections in 2013. The party also underwent an...
Sorry to interrupt you, counsel. You mentioned the international definition on terrorism.
Indeed,
what is your source?
Your Honors, the International Convention for the Suppression of Financing of Terrorism, Article 2, Paragraph B.
This is not an act. This is not an act of financing of terrorism.
Indeed, Your Honor.
You cannot hold this definition as an agreed definition internationally for acts of terrorism. And this is only in relation to financing of terrorism. What we are prosecuting now is not in relation to financing of terrorism.
I understand your concern, Your Honors, and with all due respect, this definition is applicable in international law because the same convention was upheld by the UN General Assembly and the UN Security Council as well. And this has been recognized by both of the organizations. Your Honors, the TLF also engaged in severe violence against critical infrastructure of Titan, and TLF's political backing allowed the TLF militia to coerce the government into surrendering before the Targaryen leaders. It instigated the Targaryen soldiers of the army to rebel against the army and become defectors fighting for the cause of Targaryens. TLF has employed such tools and devices which are commonly adopted by terrorist groups, such as hiding among the population and intending to use civilians to mark their presence. Your Honors, there are 4 elements for attributing individual criminal responsibility under Article 25, Paragraph 3, Clause A of the Rome Statute, also as ruled by the Lubanga Pre-Trial Chamber, all of which are not fulfilled in the present case. First, a common plan is required. In the present case, there is no existence of a common plan. Victor's role was limited to that of a software developer, feeding in the data of militia leaders into drones in accordance with the orders received from the military commander Jack Ryder. Second, Your Honors, the accused did not provide any essential contribution to the common plan that resulted in the commission of a relevant crime. Corroborating the testimonies of Defense Witness 1 and Defense Witness 2, Your Honors, Viktor Yanukovych was indeed an expert in weaponization of artificial intelligence, only in the technical aspects of weaponization, and he was not the only expert available. Viktor Yanukovych was not the only person who traveled to US for training, learning active warfare for 1.5 years using drone technology. As testified by prosecutor witness 1 today and victim witness 1 today, Victor was accompanied by 6 others, indicating that expertise of Mr. Victor Yanukovych was not rare to find and that he was easily replaceable. This establishes that Mr. Victor Yanukovych did not make any essential contribution or any extraordinary contribution to any common plan existing. Thirdly, Your Honors, the suspects must be mutually aware and accept that implementing their common plan will result in the realization of the objective elements of the crimes. Victor Yanukovych was employed by the project by Mr. Charlie Fox, the president, and was not handed any authority in determining the implementation of the common plan. Fourth, Your Honors, the accused was not aware of the factual circumstances that established the existence of an armed conflict and the link between these circumstances and any conduct. Holding Victor Yanukovych responsible for voting in a meeting and playing a limited role only as to the programming of the drones would be in sheer contravention to the principles of criminal justice. Your Honors, Mr. Victor Yanukovych indeed programmed the drones. However, it was an action limited to feeding the data of key political TLF leaders. He did not manufacture the drones and could not have anticipated the drone's lethal stage, considering the July 26 situation being an unanticipated one. Your Honors, the prosecutors have also alleged the commission of a crime by a group of persons as well. In the present case, there is no group of persons and a common plan is failed to exist. The appeals chamber in Hatsi Hasanovic and Kubara recognized that the power to give orders and have them executed to serve as an indictum for effective control, which was exercised by Jack Ryder and Charlie Fox on July 26, and not Victor Yanukovych. The same can be witnessed from both the prosecutor witnesses' testimonies today and from paragraphs 12, 13, and 16 of the official compromise. Your Honors, mens rea must be proven under Article 30 of the Rome Statute. The prosecution must prove that the accused had relevant level of intent and knowledge when carrying out the material elements of the crime he is accused of. In the present case, the prosecution has failed to provide a single direct evidence proving Victor Yanukovych's requisite level of intent and knowledge to commit the crime. Your Honors, as testified by him, Mr. Victor Yanukovych acted in his capacity as chief technician of Project Hawk, exercising very limited and restrained control. He was only concerned with his duties as a software developer and did not take any steps leading to civilian casualties. Your Honors, Victor Yanukovych did not have the relevant level of knowledge as well, as the occurrence on July 26 were unforeseen intervening circumstances, and Victor supplied the drones with the sole knowledge that they will be used against war and terrorism. The burden falls on the prosecution to prove that the mens rea of the part of the accused, which in the present case has not been proven. Your Honors, Professor Glanville Williams has aptly opined, and I quote, that greed is the easiest motive to allege in the absence of any motive. Victor Yanukovych has been portrayed as a corrupt individual working for his personal and financial gains. However, Your Honors, Victor is a citizen of the country who has devoted 10 long years to developing the country in modern warfare. Victor is a businessman who in this modern world wishes to revolutionize warfare and contribute to Titan gaining a competitive advantage in science and technology, while other nations individually accelerate their efforts towards the same. Victor's drone programming was his contribution to the protection of national security and sovereignty of the country and bring back peace and normalcy to the situations of war and terror. How can a person working to improve the country's defenses be held responsible for killing them? Your Honors, today this court has an opportunity to reinforce the fair trial, a protection awarded to the defendant before this court. I rest my case, entrusting upon this court faith that it will provide justice not only to the victims but also to Mr. Victor Yanukovych, who has suffered false accusations on the basis of perfunctory investigation of an atrocious crime. Your Honors, if there are no further questions, the defense would rest.
Your Excellencies, can a clarification be pointed? They read a provision incorrectly with regard to a testimony which was on record. The fifth annexure, which is the chat with the speaker. Your Excellency, Rule 75 of the Rules of Procedure.
Do you have time, Mr. Counsel, for reply?
I do not, Your Excellency, just why I was providing a clarification itself. Your Excellency, Rule 75, which talks about incrimination by family members of the rules of procedure and evidence of the Rome Statute. Your Excellency, that does not mention sister to be it only provides for a child, a spouse, or a parent. Their testimonies cannot be taken on account with respect to incrimination. Your Excellency, this chat was with the sister, and therefore the law is being read incorrectly by the defendants and can be taken on record as well as consideration for a conviction, Your Excellency.
What is the evidentiary value of your chat message?
Your Excellency, the chat message talked about a common intention between Jack Ryder and the accused to blow up the school and not the TLF militia.
How do you sustain your chat message to be valid in the evidence, law of evidence?
Your Excellency, it was stated, the message was sent at 11:47 a.m. right before the attack was supposed to be conducted. At 1:20, the attack was had started on the same day. To his sister, that it is going to be a long day for me.
Have you confronted and has he admitted to this message?
Your Excellency, it was not confronted in the examination due to paucity of time.
Then how is it evident? How is it valid under the Evidence Act?
Your Excellency, because the office of the prosecutor with aid of the local authorities had taken it with accordance with the municipal law, and that is present in the compromise.
All right.
Your Honor, if I may just add on to that, in my cross-examination of defense witness 1, Mr. Yanukovych, I specifically asked about the moral apprehensions and referred to the same annexure. Mr. Yanukovych did indeed confirm that there were moral apprehensions, which was showcased in the first text message, Your Honor. That was that in my cross-examination.
Whereas he admitted that he sent message to his sister and she replied. And what is the evidentiary value of the chat message?
Your Honor, two parts.
It can be tampered, it can be concocted, it can be fabricated.
Your Honor, this was directly submitted to the office of the prosecutor. And that's number one, Your Honor. Number two is that even domestic laws, Your Honor, ICC's jurisdiction is only supplementary. But in the cases of extreme grievous harm, the office of the prosecutor is within its mandate to specifically require domestic courts to allow for the disclosure of previously privileged information. So even if the Titanian government's rules were that it was private privileged information, the fact that under articles of the Rome Statute, the procedure of evidence will take precedence over the domestic laws. That is why it's not privileged information, Your Honor. That's number one.
Mr. Counsel, under the law of evidence, when the prosecution produces a material before the court, if you have to sustain it, you'll have to confront it to the witness and then take an acceptance and admission. Otherwise, you'll have to prove it in the matter
Your Honor,
to law.
Indeed, absolutely, Your Honor. In my cross-examination against defense victim 1, specifically Mr. Yanukovych, I specifically asked whether he had any moral apprehensions about the future subsequent strike which we conducted. And I specifically referred to Annexure 5 first message. And he did commit and he did confirm that there were moral apprehensions. And then my line of questioning then talked about whether the contradiction existed or not. So my fundamental premise in that line of questioning in my cross-examination was the fact that there were moral apprehensions, and the same was specifically written in the first text message with her sister, Your Honor.
You're Mr. Counsel, you're for the victim.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your grievance is reparations.
Your Honor, again, as I've mentioned, as my co-counsel has mentioned in her opening statement, our objectives are twofold, Your Honor. Reparations can only be given to our victims, that the ones that we're representing, only after the accused has been convicted. So it is in our best interest.
The question is whether Victor should be convicted or all others or anybody else should be convicted to come to the second stage of reparation.
Your Honor,
Mr. Counsel, you're not concerned whether Victor is convicted or A, B, C, or Jack Ryder or somebody else is convicted. You're concerned with reparation.
Absolutely, Your Honor. As assigned to this particular case, as the victim counsel for the victim legal representative in this present case, Your Honor, the only mandate that I'm allowed to work within, Your Honor, is to prosecute and convict specifically the accused, Mr. Yanukovych. Anything other than that mandate is unlawful, of Your Honor. So I'm not in the position to answer that same question.
Accept. Yes.
Your Honors, if I may. Your Honors, if I may.
You don't have a right of reply to a reply.
All right, Your Honors. Much obliged.
What do you want to say anyway?
Your Honors, the same that the chats are inadmissible and there are laws for the same.
That you have already argued, learned counsel, extensively.
Indeed, Your Honors. Much obliged.
My brother wants to say something, Srinivas Rao. You're muted.
No, I was agreeing with your lordship that she has argued her case well, and I think to the fully also.
Yes, very extensively. I concur with you.
I agree with you.
Yes, please.
And I think we can, if the proceedings are no further submissions are there, then we can look for our own deliberations now.
Yes, certainly.
I think we will be taken to breakaway room by the organizers.
Yes,
where
you're right.
we can discuss.
Good afternoon, judges. I'd like to sincerely thank all of the honorable judges for being present here with us today and judging the final round of SITA 2022. Before we conclude, I'd just like to request everybody present here to join us for the valedictory ceremonies at 5:45 p.m. on the same link. Respected judges, we will now be creating a breakout room for the judges to deliberate upon the proceedings of the final round. You will receive a pop-out on your screen to join the same. I request you to please join the breakout room once you receive the pop-out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Honors.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you, Your Honors. It's an absolute privilege
Thank
to
you
argue
very
before
much.
this court.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentations.
Respected judges, the breakout room is open now. I request all of you to please join the room.